Yay!
Yay!
Nice cowbell. I had a different screen up. I couldn't see what you were playing, Jen.
Paper clips.
Sweet.
All percussive instruments tonight. No melody.
Did you clear that cowbell with Gino?
Well, the cowbell, is of course influenced by Jen's new favorite song.
Nice.
Jen's been listening to what is the name of that song?
I don't even know. Elvis Presley. That a little more action, a little less less conversation, a little more. I don't know the name of it.
Conversation and a lot more action.
That's the one.
Less conversation, a little more action.
That is some badass show tunery,
Yeah, we were cranking that sucker.
Jen's been cranking the Elvis.
Yes.
Welcome. This is Outside the End. Welcome, everybody. We are the Travis Larson Band, and we are quickly, week by week, winding down this year that has been so fantastic. And we've only got a couple more weeks to go. So tonight, just to kind of get a head start on what we're going to do, we've been moving through the albums and various projects in detail each week of our career. And this week is no different. This week, we're going to move on. Last week was Sound Mind. So, of course, this week is going to be Shift. We're going to get into Shift tonight. But before we do that, let's just quickly take a look at who's hanging out and say hello to everybody. I saw a lot of people jumping on here before we were on here, just saying hello. There's Glenn, as usual. Thank you, Glenn, for always hanging out with us. Chuck.
Yep.
James Tejada here from the get-go tonight. So
I always like the sense of community where people are saying hi to each other too. That's fun.
I know. Hi, everybody.
Yes.
And
There's
Goober.
Yeah.
And Jim.
So before we totally get into this.
And I saw somewhere, there's Anthony and Wayne. I hope you're healing up well still, Wayne.
Oh, yeah. Wayne. I hope, hope you're doing all right. And it's probably, this if you were going to do this kind of activity on any year, Wayne, this would be the year, right? So
yeah, no
I
kidding.
hope you're getting at least time to recover and rest and all that kind of stuff. So, so real quick. Well, first of all, I was going to say on a not a serious note, but on a heartfelt note, I was going to say our friend Jason Becker posted a beautiful video today. His tribute to Eddie Van Halen, which was some unseen footage from Jason's living room when Eddie would come over and hang out and play a little bit for him and that kind of stuff. So if anyone hasn't seen that, go check out Jason Becker's page after this cast and or check out his YouTube. And there's some really nice moments in there where you kind of get a behind the scenes look at not only Jason's family, and a lot of people that have seen the movie know his situation and how beautiful this whole tribe of people around him is, but also just what a sweet guy Eddie was at the core, and how much that guy really cared about people that needed some compassion. So now moving on to the stupid and not heartfelt. I was going to just get right into this, but maybe Jen can save if she's got some stuff down the road. I saw someone already mention a joke. They were ready for this week's joke. So, but let me just get into, I've been a little lax on the who's the mans lately. And Jen and I were talking.
Got my shirt. Yeah.
What's that?
I said, nice. Anthony caught my shirt.
Yeah. Nice.
Just wait, was I interrupting? Go ahead.
Oh, that reminds me. Speaking of shirts, let me mention one more time that TLB has returned the Moore's Circle TLB logo shirts to the fray. In our special, we basically have a separate merch page from the one on our website now that is a kind of a special run of things that will be limited. And we'll call it the I don't know what we'll call it. We'll call it the lockdown merch. We'll call it but we've got various types of shirts and zip up sweatshirt hoodies and pullover hoodies and women's shirts and stuff on there, which we don't normally carry any of that stuff. So if you check out the description of this webcast, you can find where it says new, and I thought, what's it called, Jen? Threadless.com.
Threadless. Artist shop at threadless.com.
So check that out. A lot of our friends have been getting into that, and they make fabulous Christmas presents. In fact, I ordered a few things for my parents, because even though my brother would say, you got mom and dad swag for Christmas, my mom loves her TLB swag. So, how many sweaters can you have that don't have TLB on them, So it's sometimes it's fun to get some stuff like that. Anyway, so I was going to mention,
says, congratulations to Rick.
Yes. Rick Beatty. I call him Rickles.
Rickles. Yep.
Rick Beatty, our old, not old, but our former touring mate when we were doing the house band on the Harman Digi truck, which was the Harman mobile stage, which is where, I know Glenn Henson is going to mention this, is where he came and saw us for the first time and drove 9 hours to see us. I don't remember where, though, Glenn. You could add that bit of information, but
I think it was Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, yeah. I do remember that it was the same parking lot that we were up all night in. Tristan was roller skating in, and we were having shopping cart races. It was that parking lot.
Board. I was sprinting through the parking lot with Jen in a cart, and then
speaking of Rick Beatty,
Tristan was rollerblading in a cart with Rick in the cart, and I feel like Rick's the one who really took the risks in this. You know what I mean? Like, I outweighed Jen 2-1, and I had shoes on, and I could make sure that she wasn't going anywhere. I'm not 100% sure Tristan could have controlled.
Yeah, Rick's a big dude.
Well, and Tristan's in blades, and
Tristan had rollerblades, and they were doing probably 30 miles an hour in this shopping cart through the parking lot at 2 a.m.
And
I have video of that somewhere.
Yeah,
and I had an interest to keeping my bass player alive, but Tristan, actually, just kidding.
He didn't have an interest in anything.
Yeah, so Rick Beatty got married today, and they did a Facebook live stream, which he was, oddly enough, he was trying to figure out if he would be able to save this video later, and so we were communicating about that the other day, because I do that every week with this show. After this show, I will download it from the Facebook, which for a while they weren't letting me do, but now they let you do again. So you never know. There's 4 episodes of this that are on YouTube that are out of sync, and that's the 4 weeks where they weren't letting you download it. But now all of a sudden you can download it. Hey, Greg, good to see you.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Dale.
I have a super short thing.
Another snare.
I'm playing a Slingerland chrome over wood, somewhat vintage snare. It's probably early 70s. Has a Zoomatic strainer on it for the drummers, which was a big deal at the time. But let's be honest, they don't really work.
Zoomatic strainer.
Yes. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up, and I thought it was topical, I had it around and I thought, this will be a good way to discuss, not at length, I don't know that much about it, but Neil Peart's Chrome Slingerland drum set got auctioned off this last week, I believe. I'm not following it that closely, so if I say anything wrong, please, I'm happy to be corrected. But it was poplar shells with maple and mahogany, and that's what this drum is. Although I think his set had a brass snare. But
is that going to be showing up in any basements that we're familiar with?
Right, I know. I believe, and again, I just glanced over this stuff. I believe it auctioned for $500,000.
$500,000.
The snare?
No.
The set.
The set.
The drum set that was played on the Fly By Night and the first 3 tours of the Rush tours.
Okay.
That Chrome Slingerland. I know.
I thought you meant just the snare.
No. I'm just using the one that is like his set to segue this forced conversation. But anyway, I thought that was fun.
Only $500,000 though?
Well, so here's the
that kind of surprises me, honestly, because I think Eddie had some guitars that went for more than that for a guitar versus a drum set, right?
Well, even if you're one of the best drummers in rock, you're still just a drummer.
Right. He's a new guy.
Sorry. I think
if you're a musician and you auction things off, they go for real money.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I think it was projected to sell by the auction house for like 80 to 120,000, but it sold for 500,000.
Oh, wow.
I think I got this right. I hope I'm not just saying wrong things. Here's the most confusing part about it. Auction house, Bonhams. You really got to fuck with me that way. Like the name of the auction house is called Bonham, and they're selling a Neil Peart drum set.
Wow. Is there any relation?
No, I don't think so. It's just what they're called.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's what I got. Interesting.
Well, that is interesting. And I did see that picture of the drum set, and I immediately thought, huh. Wonder if that'll show up somewhere. So I was going to mention, I'm going to do a real quick Who's the Man, because around the Christmas season, I don't know if people other than me feel like this in this live chat, but I know people in the world do, because I've gone to other live chats when we've had holiday seasons where they didn't have these. But around the holiday season, you start to see the Bond marathons. And so Bond has over the years started to associate itself with the holidays in many people's minds. And this was supposed to be the holiday season where they released the new Bond, which of course they pushed back because of all the lockdowns and stuff. So I thought, in the spirit of the holidays, and everyone's like, the spirit of the holidays, but that's why I prefaced it with that story. I have a Who's the Man, and it's really a Who's the Blofeld. And this might be more for the people watching than you guys, because while Jen might have an input, Dale will not.
I'm out. I'll be over here drinking.
So pay attention, everybody. For those Bond fans out there, who is the Blofeld? Telly Savalas or Donald Pleasance? Who's the Blofeld? Talk amongst yourselves.
Donald Pleasance. Now,
as much as Telly Savalas is the man, Donald Pleasance is definitely the Blofeld, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I think. I watched, is it You Only Live Twice? That's the first time, that's when you see Donald Pleasance in the volcano.
Right.
Right. You never really see his face. So, I got a TS for Jim. I got a Donald for Jeff. I got a TS for Greg. Glenn says Pleasance is always cool, no matter what role. So it's fairly mixed. It's like off on. But I will say that when you watch the stereotypical Blofeld, and then, kind of what became the parody of Blofeld, Donald Pleasance is that guy. And he's got this weird accent that nobody understands what it is, but you hear him yelling, you never see his face. And he's like, "Get Bond." He's always yelling like crazy shit like that, right? Like, it's like, "Get him now." And he's not really supposed to be German. He's not really supposed to be British. We're not really sure what's going on there. It's kind of like the Highlander accent, where it's a mesh of like all these different accents.
It's kind of like Sean Connery as Bond. We're not really sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I captured this, for everybody, just because I hadn't noticed it before, and I was watching On Her Majesty's Secret Service in part of my comparison study. And this is the one with Telly Savalas. But Telly Savalas says this, which I didn't remember him saying.
Merry Christmas, 007.
I don't remember that. So
nice.
But he said exactly like Kojak, which is disconcerting when you're talking about Blofeld on a James Bond movie. You just wait for him to say, "Who loves you, baby?" So there's really no character going on there. It's just Telly Savalas. Whereas, Donald Pleasance didn't even have an English accent, and he played an American president in Escape from New York. I will cease the nerdism there. But
okay. So anyways.
All right. So Shift. The album Shift. We're going to talk about it tonight.
I thought I was supposed to do a joke. Is that later?
Yeah. Did you have something, Jen?
No, save that for later.
We'll do later.
We have to break this up.
Why am I here?
Because we're going to talk about Shift. Greg says Pleasance is the original Halloween. Yes. He was Dr. Jen just told me Dr. No, she said Dr. No. That's the wrong doctor. No, what was the doctor in Halloween? We should know this.
Yeah, doctor psychiatrist guy.
Yeah, he's Dr. Psychiatrist guy in Halloween. And Donald Pleasance was in Halloween from 77 to 1995, something like that, and died right after his last Halloween.
His last Halloween or the release of the movie?
Release of the movie, which is always on Halloween, of course, because it's called Halloween.
Well,
the marketing wouldn't be great if they released it on December 25th or something. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about what's in the cup, Dale. Jim wants to know.
Okay, Jim, you ready for this manliness? Some cider, some hard cider, poured in, mixed with rosé wine.
Ew.
This is like a super non-masculine wine cooler of cider and rosé. It goes great. It's not gross, but it's nothing to brag about.
In contrast to the I Hit Things shirt.
Yeah,
Jen,
right. That is a good contrast.
Sam wants to know how the motorcycle riding is coming, Jen.
Nice.
It's good. I haven't gone out for the last couple of days. Today was super foggy and wet. It wasn't raining, but the ground was wet enough that I just thought it wise to not. And then I went in the other day to go. I told the guys this to get my permit, to take the written test for my permit, and shockingly no line at DMV. I walked right in. They take your temperature, they do the whole thing, and nobody was there. It was like, wow, that's I have never experienced that in my life before. And they said since it's like a renewal in California, I'd have to take a new picture. And I just went in like I had just finished like pulling weeds and I don't know what I was doing. I was covered in dirt.
People know that without the makeup, Jen looks like Richard Keel.
Right. This is true. So I said, well, can I leave my mask?
It's another Bond reference. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. I said, can I leave my mask on? And they were like, no, and laughing at me. And so I totally bailed. I'm like, I have to come back. I told Travis, I had a driver's license picture for 20 years that was like awful. And I lived with it. And I just got my new one where I look halfway like normal, like I look sort of human. And I'm like, yes, finally, a new driver's license picture where I don't look like, I don't even know what that was. I was like a Sasquatch in that other picture. And so I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I am not doing that again. So I'm going back on Monday, maybe.
You know what that was? Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Totally. I was like, no, I ain't doing that. I'm too old to live with an ugly ass driver's license picture for the next 20 years. It's just not going to happen.
I love it.
And I am old enough to make that choice also.
That's the best part of the conversation right there. I am old enough to make that choice.
You can't make me take a stupid picture. I'm out. I like it.
I told this story to a friend of mine who's also
writing's
female.
going fine, though, by the way. Sorry, Travis.
I told this story. Since you told the story, which I wouldn't think you would tell that story, I told the story to a friend of mine who's also female and fairly attractive like Jen. And, like when she doesn't look like Richard Keel. But, and she goes, she walked out of DMV? What? Why wouldn't she just, who cares? Nobody's going to see this.
Well, it would be fine if it was a separate motorcycle license, but it is not. It is your ID, your license,
right?
The thing, as a touring musician, you're sending around to God knows. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, yeah, it was a choice, a vain one perhaps. But again, I went through 20 years of just the most god awful picture you can even imagine. I'll show it to you guys next time. You'll be like, what?
I would argue that it's not the most god awful picture. Like
anyway, it really was.
It just looked like Jen in a sweatshirt. That's what it was.
But I was like 25 or something. I had to live with that thing for 20 years. And then I finally got a new picture just last year. And I was like, yes. And I'm not going to do that again. So
good for you.
Thank you. I mean,
No
I had
reason.
dirt on my face and
Yeah.
Becky Fallon is here. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Becky.
Hi,
Happy
Becky.
holidays. So she said they're all pretty much alone for the holidays. Well, yeah, I plan on sitting right here for the holidays.
No.
I'm gonna watch the Peanuts Christmas special, and then whatever Bond I'm on that night, and maybe It's a Wonderful Life if I could fit it all into one evening. And what I also like to do, and we can talk more about this next week because we'll be getting closer, but I get all the computers set up. Jen knows we have this office. Well, Dale does too. Dale and Jen have both been in the office, oddly enough. But we have this office where we got all these computer screens, because there's a lot of computering going on here at the TLB Precision Records headquarters. And so what I do is I get that Santa tracker up on all the screens, but they get different views. So each screen gets a different view. And then it feels like you're in a NASA control room watching Santa and where he is delivering packages throughout the night. So you got the one close-up shot, and then you get the radar shot, and then they got the actual videos of him going down chimneys.
Yeah.
Really?
So, hi, Mary. Sorry, I messed up your name last week.
Glenn says a Charlie Brown Christmas. Yes, that's correct.
Now, are the Charlie Brown things that I'm not sure if I'm all the way informed about this. Are those no longer showing because they were purchased by somebody or other? Like, wasn't there a big to-do about that? Are you not going to be able to see that without?
Oh, no, I have them all because I recorded them in the past when we had a DVD recorder. But here's the thing. Oh, and I actually have the real copies from when Jen and I managed the video store. I have a VHS copy.
All right.
Actually, that's probably what I'll watch. But the thing is, we don't have network television anymore because that's expensive. So I got that Sling. If people want live television, but you don't care about the networks, you get that Sling TV and you get all the cable channels, and then you could still watch the Bond marathons. And that's really what it comes down to. The Bond marathons, the Access TV is great because you got all the music programming on there. That's a lot of fun. You get to see, a lot of good interview shows and stuff. That Dan Rather interview show is great.
Jim says Die Hard Marathon here. Travel, have your back on that.
Oh yeah, I'm down with that too. Yeah. Who said that?
Jim.
Oh, Jim Highland?
Nope. Jim. Oh. I'm going to mess up. Is it Yaden?
I'm just making you pronounce his name.
Yeah. I'm tap dancing around it.
What's his name, Dale? Go ahead.
I already messed up Mary's name last week. Oh, by the way, last week I was rewatching something. I can't remember why, but I think Mary said something about you look like you're not look like, but you seem like you're always up and never sleep. And I went off on a rant about self-righteous early morning people. I'm not sure what triggered me, but Mary, I wasn't talking about you. I didn't think you were attacking us. I wasn't mad at you for mentioning mornings or something.
Well, Mary has a reason to get up.
I'm just mad at mornings.
Mary's actually getting it done over there, and she's taking care of sick people.
And I respect people who do get up in the morning. I just hate mornings. So
what I do is I stay up all night and then I sleep till noon.
Right. Like I always say, nothing good ever happened before noon.
All right, we need to move along here.
Yeah, you're right.
Eric says live at Daryl's house rules. That's true, true, Eric. And did Eric make it? Eric went to live at Daryl's house, right? Or to Daryl's house when we played there.
I think
you were there. You were there, weren't you, Eric?
Yeah.
I remember he was definitely at the Iridium. I remember Eric at the Iridium, and I think I remember him at Daryl's house.
And he was upstate with us too.
Eric's always with us when we're in the Northeast. Eric's the man. And if we need a keyboard solo, he's our guy too.
Yes.
And if I need to talk about Rocky movies, Eric is also the man. And at some point, you guys got to catch up on these Creed movies. And the other thing is, last night I was thinking, you guys have not seen the newest Terminator because that was on TV last night because we're getting free epics for the weekend.
Oh my!
And Jen has still not seen the new Terminator movie, and they brought Linda Hamilton back. You got to see this.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Cool. Sold.
In all of my downtime, I'll have to watch it in the morning.
No. Come on. Okay, right. So Shift.
Yep.
The album Shift. I told you we wouldn't get started until half an hour in. Yeah. So the album Shift was 2013. and spawned a live DVD and whatnot that we'll get into down the road. But Shift is, so we keep talking about the progression of our albums, and we mentioned Sound Mind last week being kind of the like they've all been a progression, and I've been proud of, you know, all of them for what they were. And I feel like we made huge headway from like Burn Season and Ready to Change. But when we did Sound Mind, that was really like, I felt like that was like a as well as we could do, like with everything that we had, you know. And then Shift to me is just a continuation of that, but it's a harder edged version, right?
Completely agree.
And I actually, as we talk about this, I should just get the pictures rolling now, right?
Yep.
Because there's actually a lot of pictures, and I'll mention again some of my favorite artwork, and that stuck around for a long time. Everybody thinks that's me, by the way. The guy with the mask on, and such a timely design for these times too, right? Here.
Right, yeah. Well,
let's do this. Okay, so I'm just going to click through these pictures while we talk about it. But and Jen took some really artistic, cool pictures this time, whereas on the last album we had absolutely no.
I think both of those albums I did a video, which you haven't shown, and those are those are a little more fun than the galleries. Just mentioning the videos, but that's okay.
This guy here. Do we have a Shift video? Would you like to check that out?
Well, no, we don't have to, but there is one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can do that.
No, we don't have time for that. You know, I think I had just gotten my fisheye lens for my camera, and that was what was occurring there.
Well, and also these pictures were. We took a bunch, by the way, that didn't get used here. This is a great one. And by the way, Kip. Well, you took most of these pictures with a timer, right, Jen, or with your remote?
I use a not a timer, but a plunge. It's called a plunger, where you push a little button and it triggers the shutter for you.
Okay.
So yes, I'm controlling the camera the whole time, and then I usually have to Photoshop out the little device that I'm using.
But there was that's a good one too. We were kind of going for a Rush vibe with these pictures, not that one, but the ones with the feet. You know, the ones that we ended up actually using. Where there was a picture of Getty somewhere where his feet were close to the frame and they were super in focus. And so we were kind of doing like band shots like this. And these are all the pictures. This is all taken at the old Slow Brewing Company, by the way, which is now torn down. Right?
Yep.
It's funny seeing these back to back with last week's, because
that's a good one.
Or no, it wasn't last week's. Rate of Change. Never. Well, I'm sorry. I got out of sequence. But I remember saying that I was kind of overwhelmed with a lot of things, and I was overweight at that time. And it seemed like it was last week. Sorry. But anyway, these pictures, it's funny seeing like 40 pounds lighter person. Like it doesn't seem like it's the same person in Rate of Change pictures.
Yeah, like we're getting closer in pictures here where we don't look all that different. I remember Kip being here for this, though. Basically, I think he was just trying to help with the lighting or make sure that
he had to let us into the building.
Yeah, he just gave us access.
That's what it was. Kip had the key. That's all it was.
Yeah, I think he bailed. I don't think he was even around.
No, he wasn't.
Well, I remember him standing around watching, but of course because he tries to like make it difficult on you, right?
Yeah.
Like he's trying to like, you know, make fun of us and all this stuff. I think a few of these outside ones we used maybe for a few things, just promotional things for gigs and stuff like that. But and you actually have a warning on these pictures. If you look at the gallery description, Jen, you put something along the lines of "for TLB fans only, don't share."
Yeah, because inevitably some publication will grab a picture out of this that is just for fun, and it's goofy and stupid. It'll be in like Bass Player magazine, and I'm like, yeah, no, that was not supposed to be like something like that. Hey,
right.
I remember one thing I remember, you managed to make these all look good, Jen, but I had shown up with, my hair was too long. And the reason was could not afford a haircut.
That's a good one with me, by the way, right there.
Yeah. That is good. I remember feeling bad about that. I was just like a couple weeks beforehand. I'm like, there's just no way. It's not going to happen. Oh, well.
Yeah, but you look pretty reasonable. I think you just you probably used some extra gel, right?
Yep. That is what happened.
That's why you
caused Jen all kinds of problems because it ended up being like it was like semi-shiny or something. It was just
right.
I was looking like the Fonz or something.
Right. So there's Dale wearing a shirt fit for Mick Jagger in 1981.
Yeah.
So
it comes and goes.
Anyway, bunches of pictures of us here. I could skip through. I remember just there's some cool artsy pictures like this though that were actually kind of neat looking versus just like snapshots that were not all that interesting, you know. There's the reality. And
wow.
What I like about this is Dale's preparing to record the next song by giving it a listen.
Yeah. But sort of failed. Sort of fell asleep.
Right.
Oh, man.
So, but that kind of stuff there is a cool shot. That's like a commercial for DigiDesign, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is because Kip had what he called a protest mullet at the time, which I'm never quite sure what that means.
Right.
But for a long time there, Kip had like the mullet of mullets.
Yeah, it was sort of before everybody did the ironic mullet. He was doing it ironically. Nope, I'm not getting rid of it.
By the way, I shouldn't show this, but those are edits. Sometimes
pay no mind.
Sometimes you just have to create stuff, you know.
Pay no mind to the man behind the curtain.
So yeah. So
I'm curious about the video though. Am I like high that there isn't one?
Well, I can take a look. If you talk amongst yourselves for a moment, I'll take a quick look.
It'll be under videos.
It's under YouTube, right?
No. Go to the website. Well, I don't know.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
It's on the website.
I got you.
It's probably going to take too long.
No, it won't take too long to look. If you guys keep entertaining people, I'll look.
All right. I got a joke.
Go.
I think I told this one before. How do you know when a bass player and a drummer are at your front door?
How?
The knocking is out of time and they don't know when to come in.
Nice.
You're right, Jen. I found it through there, but it is actually a yeah, I got it. Hang on. It is actually a YouTube video, but it's linked to our page. So here, we can show this while we're checking it out.
We don't have to waste time. I think videos sometimes are a little more, since I took the trouble to make one, more interesting maybe.
Let's check it out.
Oh yeah, because I did all of that After Effects work.
Fun.
Shift is a pretty dark record overall, or at least a heavier record, I think. Definite extremes on this record, sometimes within the same song. Every record you're trying to top what you've done before, just for yourself, not necessarily for anybody else. So then it gets more challenging to try and find something that you haven't done and break out of those patterns and old ways of doing things. We got to a place where I'm really happy with
Nice job, Jen.
A little stuttery.
Wow.
So not on my end, but I'm the source, so I can't tell. I was going to mention the duck. Somebody mentioned the duck was off tempo. Jen bought that duck, and it's a solar powered duck. It's got like a little solar panel on it.
I didn't buy it. It was a gift from a friend named Brandy.
Ah, that's what it was. Okay.
Saying, I don't know. Don't blame me for buying no solar powered duck.
So
never happened.
There, and you are inferring that the solar powered duck is not cool, because the solar powered duck is still in the office, a source of inspiration.
No, I love the solar powered duck.
But here's something that, happens occasionally. The solar powered duck will get hit with direct sunlight and get really enthusiastic and eventually walk off of a shelf and hit the ground and explode into a million pieces.
It's done that two or three times now.
Yeah, I did it. Well, I did it recently. So that however many that added to it. But recently I texted Jen a picture from the office where the duck was in pieces again. And I was able to, it's like the intro to the $6 Million Man when this thing goes to pieces. Yeah. You're sitting there with a pair of, you get like crazy glue and tweezers, and you're trying to figure out how it goes back together, but you have to save the duck. Yeah. Because without the duck, I don't think we could have made that record.
No, I don't think we could have. Yeah. That little duck, every time I'd track, I'd look up and I'd get like all happy and I'd be like, okay, I can keep going. If that little duck can keep going, so can I.
Right. Nicholas says reflex bass, Jen?
Yes. Yes, indeed. In fact, I was noticing on all of the song notes I was overviewing before the broadcast here how much I actually used to the Game Changer on this record. So
yeah, it's a Game Changer version of the reflex.
Not reflux, the reflex.
The reflex. Da-na-na-na-na. Right.
Right. Okay, so that song we just heard was Shift.
That was Shift. I mentioned, or I saw, was it Glenn said Shift could be a James Bond theme. So interestingly enough, when Vinnie Moore heard it, he emailed me or texted me and said, he said some nice words about the album. But he said, when I first started it, I thought I was getting into like some Mission Impossible business or something. So here's the thing about that song. The reason it starts with B3 and it's, and it's in 5, but it's, in true TLB fashion, we try to make it sound like a straight rocker, but it's in 5. I was really into you. We talked recently about being into ELP, and I was kind of like just on this ELP kick before we did this album. For some reason, I was just like dug into all the DVDs and the videos and listening to the super old stuff. And so that's the most stark, like, I thought it will just open the album with like some distorted B3, instead of like a guitar riff or something. And so that's how that came to be. And then what's interesting about that song to me anyway, is that the rhythm section riffs are kind of in contrast with the B3 once the song starts. Like the B3 kind of keeps going underneath the entire mix of the song, but it kind of like intertwines with what you guys are doing.
Right.
And so live, the way we do that is Dale uses his sampler and he's the B3 player, but yeah. But that was originally just kind of influenced, and it doesn't sound anything like an ELP song, but the idea of having the very stark B3 on there was total Keith Emerson. And that's because I was just on this huge Keith Emerson kick at the time. And then it's also, kind of got, this was around the time that after our first Aristocrats tour? I can't remember. I remember we were hanging out with Brian Beller a lot, and he was just starting to do the Satriani gig, and we'd seen him and Marco and Mike play with Satriani when Steve Morse was opening for them, And
Right.
there's kind of a heaviness to that tune, especially the choruses, where my favorite of the stuff that Satriani used to do kind of reminds me of the vibe. I mean, it's obviously not in any way derivative of anything that Satch did, but to me, it has that kind of vibe where it's like this kind of heavy. My favorite stuff of his is when he was kind of heavy and off kilter a little bit and a little less radio friendly, if you will. So it's kind of a combination of a radio friendly production with a song that's not,
Yep.
not radio friendly, because 5 songs in 5 are not generally radio friendly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you guys have anything to say about? We could just say this is the discussion on that song and then move on to the
Seems
second
like Dale's
song.
been trying to say something.
Oh no, what I was going to say was, I remember this. We talked a little last time about how the demo process was evolving, and I remember this song specifically and this album being a time when sometimes I get drum demos on songs where if I gave it a serious listen, maybe it was not just something for me to pass over. Like maybe you had programmed a part that I feel like the verse section of this song is really close to what you gave me as a demo, is what I'm trying to say. So it went from just, click tracks to some rough things with a 1 in there to you were getting smoother at it and it wasn't too much trouble for, if you had a clear idea, you'd go ahead and throw it on there and I would get on the phone with you and say, how much is this something that you actually kind of want to hear? And I didn't think of anything better. And I just remember this song as one of the times I'm like, Trav's idea is a good one. It's a good drum part, So it just felt like more of an evolution of the demo process that started hitting our stride in SoundMind.
It's the last song that I used the Alesis drum machine on, or the last album I used the Alesis drum machine on for demoing, but I was programming more different parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would go in and literally sit there and program stuff. And, and then later on, what I'm referring to for people that maybe haven't caught us discussing this is I got into actually MIDI programming in what's the program? It's like one of those drummer programs that I'm using. I can't remember.
Easy Drummer.
Yeah,
that wasn't on this album, was it?
No, but I'm saying this is the last one that wasn't that.
Yes, got it. Yes, right.
So this was still, I would program a bunch of drum parts on this drum machine, record them in the Pro Tools. Jen and I would sit there and arrange stuff,
right,
and like cut and paste and slide things around. And she would say, "This should go one more time," or whatever, But that's
you have to put a 30-second note breath in there that's going to make Dale crazy because he's going to call it a dotted something or other.
Right.
I also remember this. We talked once about how every album has some song that, for reasons that you can't replicate on other songs, you just like the mix on. And this was the song on this album for me. That's most of what I have to say. That and we played it a lot live as an opening song, and it was so hard not to rush the song. It's slower than you think, and we would get all excited, and you'd open and be like, "Oh!" And I'm like,
trying to and you're like,
down.
dun. Yes. Oh, I hated that.
Especially after Aristocrats set, where they're just going berserk, like in some of their songs, and we're just going, "Go, ga, go." Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay.
Song number 2.
Song number 2.
Sure.
Here, let's see. What is song number 2? Song number 2 is Point of Balance. So, Point of Balance for I think Jen's peeing. Point of Balance is a song that's deceivingly fast because we did like a halftime feel on the kick and snare, but for those that don't realize, Dale's going the whole song,
Right.
like as fast as he can. It's like 2 spread out ride cymbals, right, Dale? Or is it a hi-hat?
Do it real quick.
It's like a high. Oh wait, I got to get out of this patch on my drums. Yeah, it's a hi-hat and a right, and it's really not a very sophisticated part. It's just kind of like. And
but fatiguing after 5 minutes, right?
It is, and my drum set's bigger, so I'm making bigger movements, and it does cramp me up. And I talked about out of heads or tails being a painful song to play. This one is sort of painful sometimes, but at least it sounds like it should be, or at least when I'm playing it, it looks like it should be. And it really just strikes me that Jen has such a percussive slap part, and there's so much space in it, and then it's fast that I just really want to stay on point for you to have something solid to hang it on, and it's just a challenge to stay really in the pocket.
Yeah, when we're not tight on that song, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, right.
There's no tolerance there.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the tune, and for those that know the tune, there's really usually when I think melodically, I think we think in terms of, even though there's no vocals, you think in terms of verses and choruses and maybe a bridge or an intro. And this song, we had done so much kind of playing and jamming with LaRue, and I love the way the Steve Morse Band rhythm section will groove on something that's just crazy, and Steve will solo over it like a madman. And I thought, we don't really have anything that's just nothing but that, just a song that we all can just blow on. So that's the idea behind it, was to come up with something where, the intro / chorus kind of ended up, I think surprisingly cool from where I originally had the idea, the the kind of cascading thing. But so that turned into a pretty cool progressive song hook, but the whole rest of the song is just us blowing as hard as we can. And it was specifically that, like you guys said, to have something, and on the entire 2015 Aristocrats tour, that was the opening tune of the night. Like we would just come out of the gates with that, and we never really did anything like that.
We came out with Shift, I think.
Yeah,
did we?
Came out. Yep. That's why it was
number 2.
Probably,
I think it was number 2. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just like the record.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah.
But I remember it being early in the set, and before I would talk, and the idea was definitely to we started looking at, we've got all these songs with all these melodies, and we didn't have anything where we were blowing our chops,
Right.
So it's like, maybe we should have a guitar song in the guitar band because not that people really have a whole lot of influence over what we do, but you start reading things and you start thinking, I'm not even sure people know I can play, because I write so many songs that are so, just all about feel and melody. And so we wanted a song there where we actually did some playing. And I love those grooves. I get, like when I watch, Steve Morse and those guys on one of those jams, I love that stuff. That's some of my favorite moments of the night, even though, it's just them going off. So I wanted something like that we would have, that we could just, go nuts on. And
reminiscent of Stress Fest.
Yeah, that I was just gonna say, that kind of metal section, that that's kind of a Stress Fest influenced lick, So, and always it's a song that's actually fun to play. It's challenging to play, but if you're in shape, it's still fun. It's not so challenging that it's not fun.
Yeah.
Certain songs are so challenging that they're not fun. And this song is challenging, and there's a lot of notes and a lot of tight stuff in it, but it's still fun when you're up to speed on it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I was hoping for it. So, but I saw Glenn mention the bass on it, and the bass is slamming. This is one of my favorite kind of slap grooves on any of our records, and one of the best bass sounds on any of our records.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed. No, I mean, it sounds good. on the record. Yeah, not always live.
Well, and just
But-
so people know, like, this is one of those songs when you talk collaboratively. I literally put in one note on the demo. I do specifically remember that. I just wanted to play over a one note kind of skank or groove. And then I was like, Jen, do some cool shit. Like, come up with a cool slap groove that would work in here. So that's one of those songs where absolutely, the guitar player didn't write the bass part. The bass player played a bass part that the guitar player couldn't fathom because the guitar player doesn't play bass like that. Like, we talked about that point where you cross a threshold where, a bass player is a bass player and a guitar player is a guitar player, and you're not kind of both intertwining anymore. It's like you start using techniques and stuff that the other person it's not even in your world. So that was one of those tunes where if you listen to the demo, it's literally just a halftime with a really fast hi-hat. It's just like, the demo with the drum machine. And I just had like a boo.
Yeah.
Boo. And then I just played over it. Right. And so that was, make something really cool. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do around it. And it's also, you guys have mentioned one person can't be completely busy when the other person is also busy. Unless, sometimes you can, but generally speaking. So that's why if you listen to how simple Dale is, it's kick and snare because Jen's so busy.
Yeah. The frequencies where I am busy is not going to step on Jen.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do remember too, there was in the bass solo, it was finally a simple part, but it was still fast for one of my hands. And I just now remember this. I'd play right-handed for 8 measures and left-handed for 8 measures. And nobody would notice it or anything. But like a drummer once in a while, I'd be like, that's so amazing. You play left hand. I'm like, I learned to do that so I could rest in this song so that I wouldn't cramp up toward the end. I'm like, there's my chance. Don't forget to do that lefty thing. That's quite the time. Anyway.
I'm just going to check in real quick here. Joe says slapaliciousness.
Yep.
Chris says first time he saw us was on the 2015 tour. Definitely a great first impression with those two songs from the start. Greg says stood there with my mouth hanging open watching her play that live. James says he digs the heavy bass on there. So I just wanted to...
Jocko asks what kind of gear was used for bass recording. Well, like we've discussed before, I typically track direct with a tiny little bit of compression just so I can manage a part. But I have in my notes here, that was just the Sterling completely flat. Nothing else. I mean, I don't know what happened in mixdown. I'm sure we fit it into the mix in certain kinds of ways and stuff. But as far as tracking goes, straight in, Sterling flat. And that was it. It was likely the natural Sterling because that one, as opposed to the Blue Dawn, it has a little more presence, and I tend to record with the natural Sterling. It just somehow sounds a little better than the Blue Dawn. I prefer the Blue Dawn for live playing. So
I was going to say, I think the added compression, and maybe if we had sometimes we put a little bit of overdrive that you don't even hear perceivably in the mix. And that's the Sans amp.
Not typically on slap parts, right, though. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but yeah. I don't really have mixed notes because that all happened so, it's on the fly. I mean, I do have one mixed note here is extra overhead channels for reverse cymbal intro. So just so we remembered that we had the extra channels to be aware of.
I forgot we did that. So that's something to mention. We did, when Dale plays it live, he just does a wash. But when we come into the one, we did a reverse cymbal hit. So it goes. Dun, 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 dun,
Is that the beginning of the song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's after. So we do it comes out of the gates with the intro that goes da 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 da. And after that, we do that hold, which would be that hold that Jen's always talking about. Do it that one odd beat. Actually, I don't think that is an odd beat, but
I think it's the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I don't remember.
Yeah, well,
but yeah, there's a reverse cymbal hit on there, a cymbal crash where it goes.
Oh, right after the intro.
Correct.
I was thinking you meant into the song. Now I get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right.
All right.
Next.
Moving on. Moving on up.
Moving on up.
Hang on, I have to get out of here. Usually I remember to do this while we're talking, but I didn't. All right. Song number 3 is Bright Eyes. So a lot to say about that song, but I'll let Jen talk about a bunch of it. But I was gonna say, like for instance, where the title came from. But song wise, I will say that there's obviously an Eric Johnson influence of wanting to have kind of a pretty clean guitar melody type of line, and fairly straight ahead, kind of like that, that sort of Eric Johnson Austin thing. But then those weird sections, which I don't know what you call them. I mean, I don't know if you call them a chorus or whatever, but the do diddle 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 diddle, those parts are kind of influenced a little bit by like the Leprechaun Promenade Dixie Dregs thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just that vibe of wanting to do something, and it didn't come out sounding like that. That whole thing sounds obviously kind of Irish, and this doesn't. Yeah. But something that you can't hear in the mix very well is that all the piano chords, so it goes boo dado 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 or whatever it does. But those, it's you've got the chord that works, and then on top of those, I believe there's all these stacked fifths on each chord, and so when you just are banging all those chords out, it kind of sounds like nonsense, and so
it's really dissonant.
It's very dissonant. So Jen, like, used to watch me play just that part. Like, I would be sitting at the piano working it out, and I would literally be sitting in there just going bo dano 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 dano. Bo dano 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 dano, but you hear all these dissonant chords over the top that aren't really in the mix. And so Jen came up with the title of this, I think, right? Or at least we did.
So we both agreed that, I don't even know if it was during the writing process or the tracking, how when you end up soloing tracks because you're trying to EQ this and that, and we had the drums along with those da 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 things. We were both like, this sounds like Planet of the Apes, that thing. Yep. And so, yes, of course, Bright Eyes, I would like to list some of the other titles though, as we went along, because earlier on it was a really pretty song. I love playing this song. I love this song. And, I felt like it was such a pretty song, and, it had just such this light kind of thing. So it all somehow revolved around flowers, which, is kind of, I'm hesitant to name any GLB songs after flowers, because then it's like, oh my God, you got a girl in the band. Anyways, there's Forget Me Not,
Forget Me Not,
Blossom, Larkspur, Snowdrop. These are all really very feminine. And the song wasn't so feminine. It had like this little thing to it. And so when we hit upon Bright Eyes, I was like, yes. This one cracks me up, though. I have no recollection of what this was about, Trav. James Caan Lemonade.
Oh, geez.
I know. I saw that earlier, and I was like, James Caan Lemonade?
That sounds
you know what? Maybe it was the Leprechaun Promenade. James Caan Lemonade.
Yeah.
Okay, that's true, but why would we say James Caan Lemonade, even if it sounds like Leprechaun Promenade?
Because I don't know. I don't recall the history. I don't know. Probably because we were like, I don't know, that's some greasy thing about it. James Caan. Oh yeah, he's hard and tough, and it's sparkly like lemonade. You know how I am very random like that.
Joseph,
you know what it is? It's James Caan Lemonade. And so anyway,
there's a girl in the band.
Yeah. Anyways, those were some of the working titles. And then when the Planet of the Apes thing became very evident, Bright Eyes seemed very obvious.
Tommy says
Yeah.
he's naming his next band James Conn Lemonade.
Oh.
See, no, we're saving all these titles for our future album.
I know I shouldn't be giving all these away, but nah.
Not that we would use that one. You can have that one, Tommy, with our blessing.
On lemonade.
But yeah, just to hear me sit there and play those piano tracks, and if you hear them on their own, it's really like pretty strange. It just sounds like a guy just banging on the keyboard, and so
it's pretty awesome.
So anyone that knows Planet of the Apes, I saw Tommy mentioned loves the Planet of the Apes reference. You remember when he's running around, it's like random guy hitting drums. If you think about the soundtrack, and then Jim just hitting like pianos. It's like, you know, it's just nonsense, right? And so that's kind of what it sounded like, and that's why we did that. So
yeah, it's better probably than James Conn Lemonade.
What do you think about this song, Dale?
I'm not going to type James Conn Lemonade into the internet. That's for sure. Anyway,
I'm going to turn my heater off while you talk, and I'm going to try not to think about what you just said.
Yes. What I just have a super random thought about this song, which is that the outro is this big, just long kind of, you know, you riding along. I think maybe I'm not representing your part well, but like I'm just kind of like grooving on this single thing and Travis soloing over the outro, and I remember trying to figure out how to handle that like dynamically. It had to be sort of, it didn't have a ebb and flow to it. It was just a single part, and I tried to play it delicate. I tried to play it heavy, and then I just latched onto it. Always seemed like it worked well if I really tried to find an emotional place to play that song. I don't know how better to explain it, but I'm such a kind of look down and not emote very much. And then at the end of that song, I would just make sure to emote a lot. And I remember seeing a video or two where just like all of a sudden I'm super into it on a really not very complicated part, but that was the only way for me to make the end of that song work. Anyway, that was very abstract, but that's what I remember about the song.
Well, one of the interesting things about the Leprechaun Promenade influence is that there's a call and response. And in this song, we made the call and response Dale. So I mean, that's one of the things that I still, you know, it's like when I do, like sometimes I'll do this song because there's no bass solo in this song. So I'll play it at solo shows sometimes, you know, because I can get away with it because it's all guitar. Like if you're doing like a NAMM show event or something. And those sections always, when Dale's not actually on stage, I always feel a little bit insecure because it's like there's a hold every time, right?
Yeah.
But when you play it live, it's really built for live, because if you see it live, then there's a call and response. Jen and I play a part, and Dale plays a part. Jen and I play a part, and Dale plays a part. But without that, then you just, if it's just Jen or I playing this for a clinic or something, then you find yourself going, you know,
right.
You
Gotta do the LaRue.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's interesting about that? I said that was my main thought about the song, but I was just trying not to talk too much. This, what you just said, the call and response, it was weirdly tricky. And all it is you guys playing 4 beats and me playing 4 beats. It could not be more da 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 da. 1, 2, drums, da da. And yet the phrasing of it that you were describing made it weird. It was really easy to lose everybody with solos with little fills I would play. And yet it's like a bunch of fusion musicians who can't count in 4. And we would get all weird because but it couldn't be more straightforward.
You lost me, Dale. But can you do that 100 more times so I can understand it?
Yeah, or I'd get lost or try to, it was just, that was an odd thing about this song. I don't know. Anyway.
I ended up playing a lot more on this song live too, than the record, because there's the I guess the verses, the da 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 da. On the record, I'm just like da 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 da, and on live I go da 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 da. I do all the rhythm guitar parts.
That's right.
Which is super fun. It's really fun to play live. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's writing root notes. There's time for you to play. So on the record, the guitar there's a overdub guitar arpeggio that just goes boo doo doo doo, boo doo doo doo, and you're going do 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 do. So live, everything is on Jen.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah.
Maybe
It's really cool. It was really hard to figure that out. You remember? Because I couldn't. It was like, how am I gonna? But yeah, it was cool. It's cool. It's a fun one to play live.
Yeah, there's like a lot of parts where there's like a couple notes where you drop down to open and then have to move up to the high notes to play the guitar section, and then it's different. It's the same notes, but it's a different arrangement finger wise than you played it on the record, I think.
Yeah,
because you had to create a bass line that would work around these rhythm parts. All
right. Yay, Bright Eyes. Next.
Yes.
So I was just looking at some comments. This is one of my favorites that we don't play, but I really like the melody in this song. This is Rockaway. So we've mentioned a few songs through these webcasts that we haven't played live, and we've mentioned that they'll probably get played on the next tour whenever that happens. But that's one of those songs that I think we're going to have to do. I love the fact that not your favorite.
No, not that.
Here's what I love about that song, which people probably wouldn't hear it as, but this is the behind the scenes. The reason we called it Rockaway is the tight rhythm section underneath a melody, but sounds so Billy Joel, and nobody would think that because there's no piano on it or anything. It's like a clean rhythm guitar and bass going bop, 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 bop. But that's such a kind of a Billy Joel thing to have hits on and up on the upbeat, and then have, like if it was him, he'd be singing over the top of it, right? But
sure. Yeah.
But I love that, and I love the harmony guitar over the top of that. That's super spread out, and it's like these long, super drawn out melodies, but still the song's moving because the rhythm section part's interesting and slamming.
Yeah.
And so, but we called that Rockaway for Rockaway, New York, just because we were spending a lot of time in Long Island, around, like right before we did this. And the opening that song is just me kind of trying to write a big, heavy guitar riff. I still don't know how I feel about that, but I love the choruses.
Yeah, the opening, is that a little like Rise and Fall, where it's like ding, 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 like an arpeggio thing?
Oh, that's right. You're right. It's like a super delayed arpeggio on the very opening, and then there's the heavy guitar riff that we just heard.
Right.
The heavy guitar riff that we just heard, to me, when I do that kind of stuff, that's total. Like, to me, that's like Mountain. If anybody remembers that band,
check it out. The other title, the working title, is Billy Joel's Mountain. Wow. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? I mean, I knew the Billy Joel thing because the parts you're talking about are so Billy Joel. Totally. But then I'm like, Mountain, Billy Joel's Mountain. What does Billy Joel's Mountain got to do with anything? So you're talking, that's the riff.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The big heavy riff is totally a mountain riff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You could hear, chicka chicka, Mississippi Queen. Right. And then when I play over it, I got this totally like kind of Leslie West, sparse, bluesy, heavy guitar, or like a Joe Walshy kind of thing. That's kind of what I was thinking through those big, heavy dredging sections. But then all of a sudden that soars
then
into
it's all Billy Joel.
Yeah, it's so weird. But then, when you think about something like, COVID brain is what I call it, you know. Too many screens all day. What's there's some Billy Joel songs with some riffs kind of like that too, but what's the one what's the one about
Uptown
partying all the time? No,
Big
the one
Shot.
about spoon
Big
up
Shot?
the nose. Big Shot.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's kind of like a big shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a big shot, kind of a heavy guitar groove too, right?
Yeah, kind of.
But really what I was thinking was more of a mountain thing, but it does have that kind of, I think that's why it works, is because that Billy Joel kind of like heavy guitar riff into like a pop groove but still really interesting, so not
I
definitely
have
not.
here Liberty DeVito meets Morgenstein as the drum notes. I don't know if I ever conveyed that to you, Dale.
Well,
Yeah,
James Todd, I said Liberty DeVito.
Type double time on end chorus. Oh,
Yes, Anthony called it too. Big shot. Thank you, Anthony.
I can't read I can't read anymore.
Because there's a heavy section in that song that is just sort of like give it a foundation of just bombasticness to latch onto. And then there was another section where you're trying to like weave like Stuart Copeland-y drums through everything and Rod Morgenstein type things. I remember, there's a comment about the album more than this song, but this album and this song was when I officially let go of the idea that I was going to play my parts note for note, because I feel like all of us always had sort of this Rush aesthetic of, you go to a Rush concert and people are playing the parts and they're airplaying the drum parts, and they really come they know what to expect and they're going to hear it reproduced well. And early on, I always had my own drum set and I could sort of try to hold myself to that. And then ironically, the more we played with bigger venues, like did opening stuff with UFO and I'm borrowing drum sets or we're going out back east. And I used to do this thing of I would practice on my own drum set and then I would practice on I would take things off it to get ready for a normal 5-piece. And then I would take things off that because everybody sets up with 2-tom punk rock set now. And I would just put the time in, and one day a week I'd go in and play the big set. One day a week I'd go in to play a 4-piece set. And it was so much, it's taking up so much space in my brain. But we used to play so much in this phase and we played the same material a lot and I could maintain that. Anyway, this was the album and this was the song where I went, you know what? We're not that band right now and I'm not that guy, and I'm going to just play whatever I want to play and not worry about how it's going to be played later when we go live. Mm-hmm. And after the album, I also remember specifically deciding not to learn the album parts because it was just going to fuck me up when I played any other drum set I was going to play.
Right.
But it was just a big turning point, but it didn't seem bittersweet. It wasn't like, oh, like that's sad. It was more just like, that's what I got to do. It's like the difference between playing a part note for note or just really getting the vibe of the song. So I remember sitting around thinking about what's the vibe of this song, and regardless of what I play it on, what are we going to do? Anyway, I don't know why this song, but I just remember that was the point in my career where I realized that.
Well, since we've never played this song.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Tommy says Liberty was just on the Dean Del Rey's Let There Be Talk podcast. He highly recommends it. I will definitely check that out. Uh-huh. Anything that Liberty is on, I will check out. Moving on.
Yep. Moving
on. Zoc.
Yep. I couldn't hear the bass just now, and it was weirding me out.
Oh.
I was I was going to say, so Zoc, many people heard this story, but for those that haven't, and since we're documenting, the reason it's called Zoc is because of this lick right here, where it goes. And if you remember the old 60s Batman with Adam West, they would punch somebody and it would do that, like pow, zam.
Yep.
And so Jen went through a whole website full of action bubbles, original Batman action bubbles, and looked for the one that wasn't obvious. And she found one called Zoc.
I think that was Dale's original idea where he was like, it sounds like an action bubble. And I'm like, oh, something like that. But I do have a list of the other potential titles. These are always just so much fun for me to look through. Flip Flop.
Okay.
All Pushed.
Okay.
I'm not sure, like what. This one's
It
really funny though.
has to do with all the downbeats in the verse where they're not on the beat.
Oh, say that again?
I bet it has to do with that. Everything comes in just before one in the verse when we pause and then come back in. They're all pushed. Right.
Yeah. Tiny Fleshy. What is Tiny Fleshy? These things come up in conversations like, well, we're having dinner or we're mixing. Somebody will just say some random thing and I write it down because in some moment it strikes me as hilarious or something. Tiny Fleshy. And then Turnaround. I think the working title was the King's X song, though, like before any of this. Like, oh, the King's X song, blah, 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 blah. So, anyways.
Yeah, so
Tiny Fleshy. I don't know where that came from, but it ended up being
influence. The King's X influence would be the big heavy unison riff that has all the stops. The da 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 da, all that stuff where there's these big gaps that King's X used to do. This is it's definitely one of my favorite guitar solos on any of our records.
Sorry, Tommy's cracking me up with his comments right now.
Nice, both of them. Action bubbles.
Exactly. It was not.
Very good, Tommy. Okay. You were saying,
I like how we don't repeat it on the air as if we ever do just an audio version of this, you won't have to subject people to these comments.
Well, they can. Yeah, you have to be here.
So one of my favorite guitar solos, much in the way because of what's underneath it. Like we took the heavy riff with all the stops and put that under the guitar solo to where it makes the guitar solo more interesting. Like it's a decent guitar solo, but it's really slamming with all these stops where you guys are locked up under me, which is always, the method to the madness of trying to make you guys do something as interesting as you can so that I sound like I'm actually doing something interesting. But
that was such a fun part to play that underneath you, me and Dale. It just, it's so fun to make that happen.
Yep.
That's also just over the years on video comments and things I've seen posted. There a lot of people's favorite guitar solo. I remember this was a demo for one of the Digitech RP pedal board units one time, and there was a lot of comments on that video about this specific solo, and
well, what's so cool about it too is that your solo is so like slinky and swanky when me and Dale are like dun, 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 like super like structured and rigid. So it's a really cool contrast.
Yeah, the early part of the solo definitely has a like a limelight kind of solo vibe, in that it's very, as Alex Lifeson always used to describe, it's very rubber bandy, very kind of stretchy, and
Ray. Hi, Ray.
That's what's cool about it. Ray Hayden. Hey, we were talking about Rick earlier. Congratulations to Rick, and congratulations to Ray for officiating Rick's wedding today.
Nice. Anyway.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he was the guy
officiating something, but I didn't realize it was Rick's. Wow.
Yeah, no, Ray was the guy standing between them saying, you two guys are willing to put up with each other for the next 150 years, and we're all going to watch you, and now you can kiss. Or something like that. That's what you do, right?
All right, you too.
Everybody brought some rings. Let's do the thing. That was Ray today. So, So anyway, I was also going to mention the choruses to Zoc. The first time and only time I think we've ever done like a Andy Summers police skank over the part where I'm playing like a reggae chant, 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 chant live. Another part where Jen had to figure out how to finger the bass parts and then find the notes and tap super high on the bass neck to play the Andy Summers police skanks live.
Yep. Beep, beep. Yep. That's can be a little challenging, especially depends on the live situation. There needs to be a certain amount of almost resonance like you would require for feedback to get proper tapping at certain volumes and such. But it's fun. It's fun. I really love playing that part.
Yeah,
it's better than just going dun dun dun. Instead, it's like dun beep 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 dun beep 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 dun beep beep. You know what I mean?
So here's
Could you do both of those again?
I shouldn't even talk about
I'm not the vocalist in this band. Dun beep 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 dun beep beep. Anyways.
I shouldn't even tell this story, but I will. Will I be specific about it? I won't be specific about the venue. On the first Aristocrats tour, on a specific venue, I don't even know if that venue is still there. Maybe I could talk about it.
Well, now you're being specific if it's not there anymore.
I don't know. Anyway, this was the first run where we were playing Zoc. I think it was 2013 or 14. And so there's on the outro to that, there's like a bunch of layering keyboard stuff that starts happening, a bunch of pads that start to saturate the mix, right? Like all this orchestral stuff starts happening. So we play that song, we play that whole section around 2 full times. And besides Jen going beep, 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 what keeps it interesting is all these swelly orchestral parts, and Dale triggers those on a sampler, and his sampler went down or something got screwed up at this gig. And so none of that was happening, and we just had to bonsai it and play it like we meant it. And meanwhile, the sound guy at this particular venue had taken my stereo leads for my rig, put them both into direct boxes that I did not approve, and the whole thing was out of phase. And I found out at the end of the show that there was no guitar in the front of house.
I know where that was.
I know you know where it is.
Yep.
There's actually some YouTube of it somewhere.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's fun because one of my memories of this song, stop me if you had more to say about that. But
well, the point is that all that was coming through the house was Jen going ding, bing, 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 ding, really badly. Sure.
And Trav having like reverb out there, but not the actual
reverb,
stuff.
but no notes.
Yes.
Right.
So it just sounds like me underwater. It's just like I'm going.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
And I'm just doing a simple thing. Beep.
Yeah. But you can't hear a freaking thing I'm playing. So anyway, and then later on, and we had that discussion beforehand because I discussed with the sound guy, make sure my stuff's in phase. And then I didn't even know it was out of phase until somebody told me after the show. And then I saw the YouTube of it and indeed confirmed, yes, you can't hear the guitar. And the tracks for the keyboard parts weren't there. And it was really just Jen playing bass and Dale playing drums.
In
just the dumbest parts, both of us.
So
I remember playing a show, again, I'm going to be vague in this case, where we were middling after a big deal guitar band, and then there was so we were like the next band, and then there was a third band, but we were coming into the tour anyway. The point is, these two bands have been traveling together, and we were inserting ourselves into it, and we didn't get any chance to check. And we got up, you guys literally got your pedal boards on stage and plugged in, and we just made it work. And it was cool that we were able to perform that way. And one of those shows, I think it was the second show, I fucked up one of these verses like early on in the song. And it was one of these cases where somehow I didn't drag you in with me, Jen, and probably Trav either, except you're playing something I couldn't latch onto. But anyway, somehow you didn't get dragged in, and I just stomped on my kick like it's a disco song for a second, and I latched onto what you were doing. It's like, how did you do that? That was and then we got, and usually after the shows too, like in a movie, we'd all go, yeah, that was great. But really what happens in the van after the show is if anything went wrong, you're just trying to figure that out. Right. So you go like, so what was the second song? And if you don't know, there's a good chance it was you, you know, but I remember that the vibe about that was, it was such adverse circumstances. And I remember you, Jen, going, yeah, I knew where I was. And I was so proud of us. Like, you listened to me and you followed me. We got back on. It was just like a warm fuzzy that I didn't destroy the song by screwing it up.
Right.
Anyway, I totally remember. You guys remember that? That was yeah, you know what it was.
Yeah, I know exactly what it was. It's almost we could almost tell what it was but I won't.
Yeah, right. No, nope.
Because there's one of those bands I don't mind talking crap about, and one of them is not. Wouldn't say anything.
Right.
We made it this far.
Jocko says there's no excuse for that. That must have been the sound guy's last day, one way or the other. So here's the irony, Jocko, is that on the next Aristocrats tour, we go back to the club. The same sound guy is there, and at sound check, I tell him this story, and then the rest of the night he's like trying really hard because I said, "Okay, here's what happened last time I was here," and I discussed it.
On that next time, Kip was with us, so that guy didn't have control.
No, this one we did 2 tours with the Aristocrats before we had Kip.
So, are you thinking back to the Guitar Out of Phase venue?
Yes.
Is that what? Okay. Yes.
Yeah. We did 2 runs without Kip with the Aristocrats, and then we've done 2 runs with Kip.
You're saying we went back with the Aristocrats? The same guy was there, and we didn't have Kip?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the first run with the Aristocrats was just we did a short run of the West Coast.
Yeah. I remember.
And then the next time was the whole Western States run, but the same venue.
The second time that happened was our own tour at that venue, because I remember that significantly too.
Gotcha.
No Aristocrats. Okay. Anyways.
Yep.
Remember that? It was just us there with that same sound guy.
What'd you say?
That tour when it was just us and that same sound guy, not the Aristocrats.
Well, yeah, I'm actually talking about a California venue, though, not to narrow it down too much.
Right.
Oh, pardon me.
My venue is actually
a lot of those venues and soundmen out there. I got confused by.
I think I know where your brain was.
Yeah, I'm talking about one south of us. I don't want to get too specific, but it's south of us.
Okay. I was thinking of Midwest.
Yeah. I know you were thinking WKRP.
Yeah, okay. Next song, Travis.
The Drift, which is okay. We'll play it and talk about it. Okay, so it's a tie. Boy, Jen sure needs to pee a lot tonight, doesn't she? Must be drinking. So this is in a tie with Zoc, I think, for my favorite guitar solos. This actually might be my favorite guitar solo. And this is absolutely the most challenging song. Yeah. I by the way, I tried to play this 2 days ago, and I hadn't played it in a while. I try to keep up on this stuff enough so when I do another one of these live stream performances, I don't have to kill myself. But this song is absolutely like the hardest song in the catalog to play.
The Drift, Jen.
The Drift. Yeah, and it's funny because people wouldn't think that. They would listen to it and think, but anyone that plays music knows the old argument of it's the slow songs that are always the hardest, because you make that one mistake and it's like, ouch, there was a big mistake. If you're playing a million fast notes and you hit one bad note, it goes by like that. But this song is so difficult.
Yep. I'm always so gentle and people where I try to be, I'm conflict averse, I guess is the term. And I don't want to trample on anybody's feelings, but I've never been less concerned about seeming like a dick as talking about this song. I remember getting this song recorded and going, you saying something like that'd be a good live song. And I remember going, we're never playing that song. And you were like, what? No, we should play that. And I'm like, I can't play it. I don't think you can play it. I don't think any of us understands this song. and also my favorite quote of my own was you remember in the Seinfeld thing where people are talking about tax write-offs and he sneers at Kramer. He goes, you don't know what a write-off is. And I remember recording this song at the end of it, and you guys were coaching me through the glass. You're like, just where the one is. I'm like, you don't know where one is.
Right.
Yeah. One of the songs I'm most proud of, and it's the hardest one to play, and it's probably one of my favorite guitar solos, maybe tied with Zoc as my two favorite guitar solos in song. But really proud of this song. I always like to bring up.
Yeah, it's a great song. I always like to bring up how frustrated Dale gets by Travis's and my approach to counting these weird parts, because we tend to count, at least I guess I'll speak for myself. I count the spaces between.
It's so logical, but it's so funny to me.
He just shakes his head like he's just like, no, you can't do that.
Well,
I'll hit a note and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Note 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do it like this, and he's like, "No, what is that?"
And to musician or non-musicians, or the thing about, so Dale's playing rhythm stuff all the time, but you and I have sections of music that we memorize. So you play a section of music where, you're going to play that section of music to that becomes muscle memory, to work your brain to think, I'm always thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, that kind of thing. For us, it's much easier to say, here's a big gap. I just have to remember that's a 6 count. And right. So when you look at
what is the gap count? Yeah.
So look at a song, you memorize all the parts. And then if there's a hold that's weird, then you just remember that's a 4 count. This is a 6 count, just like in order in that song. And that's a much easier way for the musicians to remember how to play the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, for you and me, I doubt all musicians.
So here's the thing about this song that I remember clearly, but I didn't listen back to it today. But okay, so the beginning, it has that 7 and 8, 7 and 8,
Fireworks real quick.
What?
Say hi to Fireworks real quick.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Judy? So then at the very end, I remember trying to learn this song, and I was hearing these big epic hits, and I was hearing where they were, and I was charting this, but then I went, oh wait, I hear the intro vamp going on too. And I called you and went, okay, so we're still in the alternating 7 and 8, but that's not going to be a conversation you and I have. I was like, so this is like the intro, right? I just started hearing these big hits not be on 1, which I think is cool. They're displaced, but it just doesn't seem how you would think about it. And we had this conversation, and I'm like, dude, there's 2 different things happening here, and they're both so forceful. Neither can be denied. I don't know what to do as the drummer. There's the 7 and 8, and then there's this other thing that I don't even know what's happening. And then you're just like, I don't know. I'm playing the phrases that make sense to me, and that's it, and it was last week we were talking about. I said one of your big gifts I thought was legato playing over an odd time, where you're not pinning things to the 1, and it's really impressive to me that you can sort of flow like that. And then this was a case where I decided, I could be wrong, but that there's an illusion happening over the 7 and 8 time signature, and I just have to stay rooted, and I have to know where that illusion is. And I think you sometimes play in the 7 and 8, and I think sometimes you play in the illusion that you created. And I was just like, it's like that cliche of, it's like a 3rd level chess. It's like you don't even care which reality you're in, but you never get burned by it. And I just have to figure out Anyway, and I remember being in the studio, and then I'm adhering to this thing, and then you guys were all like, "That was weird. That big hit should be one note off." And I'm like, "Are you?"
Yeah.
I just remember that day. I remember
we were like, "What?"
I almost had to just walk away and think about it and come back to decide whether to fight about it. And then I was like, "No, it always comes out. Whatever you guys say always sounds good." It just violates my analytical mind. But anyway,
And
that's all I have to say about that song.
What do you want to do, Jen?
Hmm?
Like, if I was going to ask you how you did this, how do you do it, Jen?
How do I do what?
Yeah, for 30 years. I just feel it, man.
Oh, sorry, you were cutting out. I couldn't quite. Yeah, you just feel it.
You just feel it, man.
But at some point, it does have to come down to numbers for the timekeeper of the band being Dale, and I recognize the frustration in that because he has to dissect everything and put it into boxes, as it were, and we're just like, I don't know, just feel it, man. So
I remember it was almost like I was interviewing you guys, like, how do you think about this? And I think in my mind, I'm used to it now, but I just kept to what I knew was right, and then for 2 measures, I shifted some reality that I think you're thinking of, and then I would go back. But, Rod Morgenstein has the best quote about this. He goes, "You got to think musically, and you got to not get hung up on numbers. But you, as the drummer, you should know the numbers. The buck stops with you, and if everybody loses one, you're the guy who's supposed to know where it is. But you shouldn't sound like you're thinking about numbers." So that's my motivation. He's great at it. But right. I get all pissed off and demand to know what's going on.
Yeah, you get all mad.
I will say in those field decisions of where something should land based on what's going to feel right and musically, like that's what it all comes down to. Does it sound musical? Jen, I can't remember a time that Jen and I have a disagreement about that.
Oh yeah, I know.
Ever. Like not one time where it was like, no, it should go there. We have disagreements about length and things like that, but never like how should this part land or feel or anything like that. It's always like we don't even need to tell each other. It's like, well, this is going here. Right? It just makes sense. Even if it doesn't make sense to the counting element of the band.
Last time I remember, I'm going to share this super quick. I'll shut up on the other songs so we can get through this. But we were talking about Forest for Trees last time and how weird that one was. And I remember going over to you guys, hey, I just have a quick question and I want to get clear on a couple things, and I'll drop by, and we talked about it. And then I just started realizing you were in agreement about a lot of stuff. There was this one point where there's like 9 hits in a row, and I'm deciding whether to keep it like seamless or whether is a clear one. And I asked the question, like, you're not going to have an answer. Like, do you guys feel like, in that series where the next thing starts? And you're like, well, yeah, right there. And I'm like taking notes, and you're looking at me like, what's it? I'm like, both of you, without discussing it, decided that the 5th note in a 9-note series was the obvious one. I'm not leaving here till I make sure I know this.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, I just did our first block, and if I did it unnecessarily, I apologize, but it looked like we were getting spammed by someone called Grace Sunday.
Yeah. Good job.
I just blocked them.
Good job.
Song title.
I just blocked Grace Sunday. That's a long title. So somebody's trying to sell something with a phone number. I don't know if I was wrong about that. I apologize to whoever that was. But
pretty sure Grace Sunday
didn't look right.
Good job. You're on it.
So I felt like Tom Green.
Some of the other real quick titles for this one were Carry On, Somehow, pretty sure, Time and Pressure, and Redemption. I think at some point we just, the drift became, who knows how these things happen, but
I definitely know where Time and Pressure and Redemption came from.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we were, came from that prison that we went to.
Yeah.
And for those of us,
right.
I'm not even going to explain what I just said. Hey, Jen, you remember that prison we were in?
We were in prison that time. Remember that time?
Yeah. You blocked somebody, and Bruce said, "Wait, I wanted to get $3,000 cash too."
Well, we could all call the number afterwards. I can still see it if you guys want me to share it with you.
Sorry.
All right, here we go. What's the next song?
We gotta go. We're rolling so late on these.
I know it's my fault. I've talked too much on that one.
Double tap. So that's the second piano solo in the history of TLB on that song. We actually had to take a keyboard on tour the last couple of years to play that song, which I was so excited about, by the way. I just saw some video footage of us at the X Jam the other day, and I got this Casio MIDI controller keyboard that has a handle on it, and it only needs to be on stage for that one solo, right? So it's so great because you just grab it, throw it out there. I've got it all linked up with carabiner, taking the slack up on the cable. So it's got like one cable. It actually runs on batteries because it's a Casio. And so it's got one cable. You can walk out, throw it down with a handle. I can play the piano solo, and then like Gino can carry it off for somebody. It's great.
It is great.
So thank you, Casio, for that brilliant keyboard. Has all the great sounds of my big keyboard here in the studio, but it's a little tiny one. And it works as a MIDI controller, USB MIDI controller. So that song, I remember you guys this was another one of those songs that you felt like I didn't have anything when I brought it.
This is so funny. This is like the Out of Bounds and
Yep.
There's always one on every record. This is that one. And I always write the song, the chorus, verse, bridge, how many times, all the little details about it. And right here on my page, it's like chorus, tapping, verse, harmonies, and beat, and then an arrow. Who the hell knows what is this song with like underlined? Like I was just so frustrated. Like, what is this song? I just gave up on the diagramming of the song. So that's all I have written for this one.
Yeah, that's funny.
Like, what is this? I can't even write it out.
Well, and to explain that to people so they don't just think you're being bitchy about it. When I bring sometimes when I bring songs like this that are, I bring very much a skeleton because I don't want to waste my time building it on the demo because I know what I'm going to do. And it's a straight ahead song, and it's a production song. I have an idea of what we're going to do. Obviously, what's ironic about it is, I bring this in and Jen's like, this is not a song, but then she works her ass off on this song, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole song is really a Jen song. If you need a song where Jen needs to be, like if we're going to do, this has never happened in a million years, but say we were going to do the quote unquote Tonight Show or something, and you wanted to feature the bass player, you're going to play this song because she's just the whole time. She's like doing all this crazy stuff, right? And it's an endurance test of tapping. But I
think that's why some of these songs don't get structured out, because we figure them out in the studio, because it's all production. It's all layering. It's all, no one knows. There's only two parts, and it's all a matter of how many times you do this and what you add to it and take away from it as you go in the mix down and in the tracking process.
Yeah. There's a lot of piano in this song, and this is one of those ones that without Dale's trusty sampler, it wouldn't work live. And that's that line that we walk of, is it okay? Is it not okay? So there's all these piano loops in the live performance, but then I play the piano solo, and that's why you had to bring a keyboard, because otherwise it would be like, it wouldn't be legitimate for me in my mind to have the whole song have all this prominent piano, and then I'm going to play a guitar solo in place of the piano solo on the record or something like that. So that's why the keyboard has to come just for one solo. It's very much a Rush mentality. It's like, if you're going to have all this like samples going and stuff.
We had talked about for a little while doing the piano solo as a bass solo. Remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So that we wouldn't have to be nailed down to taking a keyboard on stage. But yeah, ultimately we were like, nah.
Gary says it sounds like a James Bond theme.
Foreshadowing.
Yes, and I won't disagree with that. And Jocko says the clean guitar tone is superb and complimentary of the bass tapping. That's kind of what we're saying. It's what we call in our little world here, we would call that a production song, because it was all about making it sound as good as you can make it sound, kind of like Out of Bounds on the last record before this one, where it's really a song about just sonic splendor, ear candy, like, I mean,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, musically, other than Jen having, she has to keep playing that part, and it's an endurance song, but musically speaking, it's not a really complicated song. It's a pretty easy song arrangement wise. It's a straight ahead tune, and it's really a tune just to kind of create a vibe. And, go ahead, Dale.
I was going to say, to me, a lot of times discipline is keeping working at things. But to me, this and parts of Zoc were the discipline of stopping working on something, like not overthinking it. Like when you're an overthinking person like me, the discipline is quit thinking. And then this is one of those too, where it just sounds organic enough and you're tempted to go, oh, I'm into an idea that could develop, but it's cool the way it sounds spontaneous. Like Jen is so, I don't want to say regimented, but like, so on point, keeping everything together. And I got to play a little, like I didn't have to think everything through, but it sounds kind of spontaneous. I like that about the song.
The interesting part too is, that arpeggio, that tapped thing, I only have to play that once in the song, much like on Out of Bounds. I wrote that part, but then knowing Jen's going to have to play this for like 5 minutes on bass, not on guitar. And it's not easy on guitar to play that part perfectly. So to play it on bass, I was so impressed that she can kill that and make the, because she makes the whole song happen. If that's not happening, the song is not happening, so, and I was going to mention too, with the Bond reference, the opening arpeggio part, and this was when Jen still didn't think it was a song. The last thing to add was just that she was like, it needs something. It just needs something, some hook. And so that bow down, down, that was the last thing that was added. And I just came up with that one little guitar thing. And all of a sudden it was like, now it's a song. Perfect. Like then it was.
Yeah. It's always that way with these ones. You will present, like, I think it was just the tapping thing. I'm like, what? There's nothing there, dude. What are we going to do with this? But yeah, and yes, I just rail on Travis. You need one more little thing. Come on. And then he'll do that. Barrel. And I'm like, yes. Okay. Now we have something.
As a musician, the funny part of that, again, going back to the guy that wrote the hard part, but I don't play it. Like I wrote that, and then I'm like, so I'm going to go bow now whole song, and you're going to play like this glorious thing where all your fingers are doing all this stuff, right? And I have to go bow now, like I'm playing a Clint Eastwood movie. Anyway, that's just the,
that thing taps through the whole record, right? That's
the ego of the musician to, it's like, well, I want to play the cool part. Right?
The cool part is the Clint Eastwood part, always. Travis, come on.
Nice. Good point.
All right. Well, moving on.
Hold on to that James Bond idea.
Yeah. World's Edge. So that's an obvious. I know this is one of those songs in the category of Dreamcatcher for Dale, right? hated the song, right? But
this, yeah. I felt a little like Jen did, where I felt like this needs something else, and I just never quite Yeah, it's
this bit here though, the part that we're just going do 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 do. That's Jen and I doing our full-on Led Zeppelin,
totally.
like it's kind of like Led Zeppelin meets Rush, where I'm doing these big extended Alex Lifeson chords, and she's playing like, you know, what John Paul Jones would play under like some kind of a Zeppelin groove, you know.
Yeah.
And it's totally like, that's such, you know, there's nothing challenging about that, but it's such a cool part. Like, we really dug that. And then there's like the ship sailing part, which Dale hates.
Right.
Well, I just kept on the thing that I couldn't not do a certain thing, and I don't even know how to explain it now, but I felt like it sounded like a yo ho ho thing, and without saying that to you guys, you're like, it sounds kind of piratey there when you do that. And so we're all on the same page, and I had to not do that, but it's still hard not to do that. And I can't even explain it better than that. But yeah, the song works great. It just had every single part has to be heard for the whole thing to work.
Right.
And no one part carries it. You know what I mean?
Jen Paul Jones, Goober says.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I love that, Goober.
How was nobody said that before? That's great. That's great.
But that's not, and then go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's got one of the heavier riffs of ours too. It's like a big drop D thing in the intro, which we didn't hear on the sample, but that bow down, 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 bow. That's kind of
a really fun riff to play.
Yeah, that's another sort of reminiscent of a Zeppelin-y influenced sort of thing, but in drop D.
Well, so some of the other song titles being considered were Blackwash, which I think is a very Zeppelin-y thing because it was probably like Black Dog. But then it does have that pirate thing, this song. So I think Blackwash, like, you know, I don't know. Yeah. Blackwash. Didn't use that. Clockwork Oranges. I'm not sure. Obviously, there's the Russian thing there. I'm not sure what the oranges part was. Clockwork Oranges. That might have been the working title, you know, instead of just the Rush song, Clockwork Oranges. I think World's Edge came about because of the piratey thing. I would always describe this to the guys, like, it's almost like you're in a big, you know, the La Nina going off the edge of the world, you know, like back in Columbus days, and World's Edge.
Like there's a big storm and it gets worse and worse. Well, and that's what we did in the in that part I was just talking about, where I'm hitting those big chords and you're playing the John Paul Jonesy groove. And then I had that reverse feedback.
The Jen Paul Jonesy groove.
Jen Paul Jonesy.
Yeah.
We do that big reverse feedback thing that builds into like the guitar solo. And that's basically
I
like
love
when
that part.
You're like going through a storm. It's like getting rougher and rougher, you know? And then it's just like, and then all of a sudden it explodes into the guitar solo. And then it goes back into kind of like the piratey section after that, which sounds a little bit like, okay, you've gotten out of the storm and the seas are settling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's go again.
Yeah.
But that's still a fun song to play live. We don't do it a lot. I try and keep up on it. But I remember the first time that was ever played, though, Jen. You and I did a clinic in Atlanta. That was the first time we ever played that in front of people.
Oh, wow. At a clinic?
At a clinic in Atlanta. Well, we played it fine because it's not that challenging. But, you know, that's one of those songs that's more like it's not as much of a musician's song as it is a rock show song. You know what I mean?
That's like a loud venue, dark LA club. Just has to be the right scene for that song, and then it goes over really well. I know we pulled it out of the set because it wasn't going over well often enough. Yeah,
but it's on the Mexican DVD, and it's cool on that, and it's cool. Like I remember playing it in New York on KG Farrell's, you know, when we were on that tour, and I still play it sometimes. Yes, Dale.
My dad owned this painting, and this is what I think of.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Do you still, oh my God. Do you still have that?
I don't know. It might.
You just have it on your phone?
No, I just looked it up. It's you know, it's probably just a print of something, a famous something, but
wow.
That's
would
World
love
Edge
to
to
know
me.
what that is. Can you send
Yeah, we
that to
almost-
me?
I almost need that.
Yep.
That's great.
That's absolutely what I imagine it, with that
right,
song.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Totally.
Should we move on?
Sure.
sure. Ouch.
The Watchmen. So just a little taste of the whammy bit there, but the idea with that was again to sound like a Moog synthesizer, and it ended up kind of sounding like sirens in a way, sort of taking like Down on Victory is the other whammy song, and this is kind of a similar but in my mind more advanced vibe. But the real thing about this song, which doesn't really come up much, the spooky chord that we talk about in the intro, which is like the acoustic guitar chord, that was very derivative of Greg Lake type of vibe that I was going for, which again, being super immersed in the whole ELP thing when I was kind of writing for this record. And so that if you listen to that intro of that song, it sounds very much like an ELP thing is about to happen. And so that's why the kind of Moog thing in the chorus is, but the song sounds nothing like ELP would ever sound. It's funky and it's off kilter and like kind of a, it's more of almost like a funky Mike Keneally kind of way or something like that, but, and then The Watchmen, I've told this at gigs many times, but the title of The Watchmen to me, this is before there was a superhero movie called The Watchmen or The Watchmen. And it was totally taken from the vibe of what's it called? Mr. Glass and all that.
Oh.
Jen, help me.
How many times have you told this story?
I know, but I told you COVID brain. I'm not telling any stories anymore. It's totally taken
Bruce
from
Willis
the Bruce Willis character of. Do you know it? If
I don't
you
know it either.
Unbreakable.
Oh, Unbreakable. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so if you've seen the movie Unbreakable, that is totally the idea of that song kind of sounded like that character to me, like this kind of dark superhero guy that doesn't even know he's a superhero. Nobody knows he is. He's not like out there wearing a crazy suit or anything, but he's like that scene in the rain when he's out by the pool and he's got like the raincoat on and he saves those two girls. That to me is kind of like the dark edge of this song, like the spooky chord and the heavy verses. And then the chorus is, again, musically speaking, I was trying to sound like Keith Emerson, but as a song, it kind of sounds like sirens in the city or something like that. So
I feel like as a player on stage, I will look around and I can see 1 out of 100 people is a guitar player who's losing their mind about what you do with the whammy on that. And then everybody else, I'm looking at them going, don't you guys realize what you're seeing? Like, I feel like what you're doing is so interesting and it goes over people's head, but a few people really latch on to what's happening with that whammy part.
Yeah, the reason it sounds the way it does is because I'm blending real slides with whammy slides, and so you're not just hearing whammy notes as an octave, you're hearing fifths and different things in there, and it's actually a melody written kind of in a circle, but it's all portamento effect, which means like on an old Moog where you play one note and bend it to all the other notes, so it's a seamless note, and that's what I'm trying to make the guitar sound like. So it's just this one seamless that whole thing. I could have just sung it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
I think it's cool though, because it's true what Dale says, but the other 99 people are out there going, dun, 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 dun. They're like rocking so hard.
Yes.
So it's another example of, I think, the classic TLB recipe where it's just a cool rockin' tune, but meanwhile Travis is doing this, what is it, pimento thing?
Portamento
Just kidding.
effect. Yeah.
Kidding.
Pimento, that's a food, right?
You're doing this crazy technique, something I've never seen before, and I don't know, it's not a particularly odd time signature, I don't think, but there's a lot of interesting stops, but it's still just really rocking and people are banging their heads, and it's a really cool song. Yeah.
Well, and the juxtaposition of the acoustic, super quiet acoustic part to the full blast rocker part, guitar solo, and the whammy pedal, that combination, not any specific parts in the song, but the combination of those and wanting to kind of put those together, that truth be told, and I've said this many times too, is our friend Dave Martone, right?
Dave Martone, yeah, sure.
Like touring with Dave Martone a ton and being really tight with him, and his whole sound is that crazy, he'll play some gorgeous, lush, vibey thing, and then by the end of the song, it's like the most crazy, like tight speed metal you've ever heard with a whammy pedal,
Yeah.
And so I was there was influence of trying to do something with that vibe. It wasn't anything specific, but there's a Martonian aspect.
Nice. There you
go.
Royal
because of hanging out with Dave over the years. So, but generally
have written here as the actual working title was Martone Song, and then some of the other titles potential is The Keeper, which is not too bad as opposed to The Watchman, Heat, There It Is, and Black and White. Or possible. There it is.
Anthony says, and Dale building the tension with the cymbals, beautifully written. Thank you, Anthony. And
yes,
Dale's whole deal is cymbals, man.
Yeah, I like me some cymbals.
13 cymbals.
That song's interesting. How that's about. It's a good balance. That's as many times as you can hit people in the face and bring it down, and hit them in the face again without it getting fatiguing. People just get really into it each time, and like I used to wonder if it was going to be too jarring, but people love it, and it's just the right balance.
Right. All right. Moving on. Only a couple more. So in follow-up to last week's Jen's first bass solo tune on a track or on a record, this is the second one. This is called Grace to Wonder, which she played on that whole tour as well. I'm glad we got to hear the first note of the solo, because it always makes me think of Clint Eastwood riding off on a horse. Right.
We have a lot of Western vibey things somehow. Clint Eastwood gets brought up a lot.
Right. Was Glenn says using the Jam Man looper. That's correct, Glenn. That was a loop that Jen had for a long time. That was one of those things that was hanging around for a couple of years.
Yeah.
The harmonics little jam thing. That was just something that you used to jam to all the time.
Yep. And finally you were like, hey, why do something with that? Yeah. Oh, okay.
And again, by design, it wasn't like we were out of material and it was like, Jen, let's just use that thing you've been working on. Like, she had these few pieces that had been hanging around. So we started putting them on records because it seemed like that would be kind of a cool thing to do to give her a voice and a spotlight in the show. And also veer away maybe from the duets for a little while, because we did those on every record until the first kind of bass solo piece. So
Yeah.
Just as
Yeah,
something
it's
to
always
break.
a nice contrast, whether it's a duet or a solo piece, to break away from the electric band,
Right.
So, yeah, that, I still hear to this day the recording of that, how it's like overdriven a tiny little bit, especially right there in those first notes of the solo. It's like, burr, burr, burr.
Well, she hit it. Jen, here's the thing about Jen's fingers. It sounds like you play so hard sometimes, but the thing is, it's very difficult for Jen to get a swelly tone, but she sounds like she plays really, really hard sometimes, because using her fingers are almost like a pick. And so if she tries to get that swelly kind of blah, 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 she'll play a note and it hits, like it's more like the Getty thing than like the Victor Wooten thing, right? So
Right.
you might be trying to have this kind of Victor Wooten-esque vibe to something, and it's hard for you to get, because your fingers aren't fat, to get it to not sound sharp. It doesn't sound fat because your fingers aren't fat.
Yeah, I'm trying to go for like a Nerf football, and I'm getting like a dart instead. You know what I mean?
Yep. This is a instructional DVD back in the 80s, like Jennifer Young's bass, Nerf football to dart.
Right. Yeah. But I feel bad for Kip, our engineer, who always has to manage my dynamics, because I am not a huge fan of overly compressed sounds. And so I don't like to track like that. But then you get that, and then once it's tracked, nothing you can do about it. So I just, every time I hear that, I laugh at it, because I'm like, yep, probably should have used a little more compression going in. Oopsie.
Anthony says, tour highlight, nice segue into Georgia.
Oh, yeah. That was, after that got to be, a really cool part of the show. Once I started getting comfortable doing it, I'm not a soloist. I don't like being out there. Ugh. And there was always a couple weeks of me just botching it, because I just am not. But then once we got the groove going, it was cool.
Just because people like to hear disaster stories, like we told the Zoc story, I'll tell the just out in the sunlight, you can't see the lights on the looper. And we played at the Guitar Under the Stars Festival, which we played in the late afternoon when the sun was going down and shining right on the pedals, and Jen had to play this song, and it did not go so well.
No. I don't even know that it was me missing it. It probably was. But you know how also the effects pedals are affected by the sunlight when suddenly they don't work?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that's about.
Lasers.
I think it was a combination of both things that day.
It's about lasers.
Yep.
Yeah. Me.
But I remember, I don't know if Dale was still on stage, but I remember Mark Storm and I standing on the side of the stage watching you and watching this thing start to defragment. And we know you're going to do something. It's going to be okay, but we're just watching it, and we're just both sweating for you. For people that don't understand, when you use a looper, it can get ugly fast.
It can get ugly real fast.
The flip side of that going wrong, I will say, my memories of the song is, there was a long time where we were doing shows with the Aristocrats where you would have this to do on stage. And that was we just talked about what an intense couple of songs would start out with on that set. And it was only like an hour-long set. And then in the middle of that, right when your nerves are starting to finally recover, you're just out there playing to that. And I remember being at a show with a pretty sort of rock star famous guitar player, being in the back room and talking to him. And that guitar player suddenly went, "Is she out there alone in front of this crowd?" And it was like, I wouldn't want to be. It was an Aristocrats crowd. And the point was not that they're a hostile crowd. The point is they came to see some of the best musicians on the planet. And now Trav and I just walk away, and you're out there alone. And I have so many pictures on my phone of just you and a bunch of people totally digging it. But I remember that guitar player just going, "I would not want to be out there alone right now."
Yeah, no, it was not. Yeah,
I was going to say one more thing before we move on, but I'm trying to remember what it was. COVID brain. All right. let's move on.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on.
Second to last tune. Sorry, I can't see it yet. And this is Above Below. So here's the thing in my mind that made this tune. I mean, obviously, the whole intro is written to be a wow kind of thing for a crowd. It's super tight and it's very intricate, and we do all that stuff. And then there's the rest of the song. And this is one of those songs where Jen and I sitting in the studio telling Dale, just go batshit crazy. And he's like, yeah, I mean, like, he goes, yeah, but that's and he'd do a take, and we're like, more batshit crazy. He'd be like, really though? And we're like, just do a drum solo over the whole song. Just more crazy. Like, wait, because it's a simple groove, and that goes back to that thing of we're trying to make it an interesting kind of fusion-y vibe. And if somebody in the band is Stark, the other person has to be doing something. So we just completely took the reins off Dale and had him just go nuts in this song. And that's what makes those verses.
And then and Jen's part was it was interesting and cool, but somehow the drums, whatever it was, wasn't covering you up either. So it was, your part was repetitive. So I would play a bunch of non-repetitive, all over the place stuff. Yeah.
I remember the feel was really difficult though. Or at least live, trying to get that down. Like I was always somehow a little ahead or behind of what you were thinking with that part. You remember?
I was
do.
That feel,
I mean,
the bass feel
live.
for that is, it's funny because it sounds so easy. Again, it's one of those things where if you come up with it versus try and learn it, but like I've seen a few people do that and they don't do it right. You know what I mean? Like
it's a weird feel. I don't know what that is.
It's a lot of stuff on the upbeat. You know, it's like do 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 do, and a lot of people that try and learn that don't put all the right stuff on the upbeat. They start to it starts to sound lopsided, like it's like a football rolling kind of.
Well, I think I do that.
I was thinking like, it seems like I've seen some other people learn it. And I actually did that song. I had to chart that song for Dave LaRue when I went to Florida one time by myself. And he wanted to do a few songs in my set so that it wasn't lopsided. Like it wasn't just me sitting in with him, but because when I went out there, I was doing clinics and I was playing by myself. And so he booked some gigs for us to do while I was out there doing clinics. And that was, by the way, I think that was right before the 2015 Aristocrats tour. And I went out there just with Mark Storm doing electric voice clinics at guitar centers. And so Dave booked like a half a week for us or something. And I was opening solo and he goes, well, so it doesn't seem too weird that you're solo. Let me play on Fuzzy, which he played on the record. And he goes, right. So let me do that. And then maybe give me something else to play that would be cool. And then we'll do the jam songs at the end of my set so that it's continuing to make it more like I'm playing with people and I'm not doing too many songs by myself on stage. And so I had to figure out the whole beginning of that, actually chart it out for him so he could learn it quickly because, it's just easier that way. And I'm not a guy that knows anything about music. So that was a challenge. Like all that, all that stuff.
Did he play it good?
Well, this comes back to that thing, right? Of it's Dave LaRue. Of course he played it good, but the feel was very, very different. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of music. Like, to anyone listening, you could play with the greatest musician in the world, but if that's not the guy that you play that part with every single night of your life, then it's going to be a little bit different and off-putting, a little confusing, and of course, we never rehearse. We just get up on stage and look at each other, take a deep breath and go for it. And
Mhm.
I mean, of course, it was great as far as the audience is concerned, but it didn't feel like just locked in like we feel. And it's because, you know, when you play the same weird, quirky part feel wise with the same musicians every night, their feel starts to ingrain in you.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So going back and same thing with that riff, you know, similar kind of vibe.
Yeah, Dave has such a confident, muscular sound, and playing with him, I remember thinking how, like, he's obviously, you know, he's the baddest cats alive, and I just started realizing that's when I really started noticing how much touch and accuracy you have, Jen, as a player, where that's its own kind of power, you know, like when everything's placed just exactly right, there's not a single note that hasn't been thought about. It just, I don't know why. And it obviously, not that I'm saying either of you suffers next to the other one. It's just a different feel, like Trav said. And that was what you have. Like every single note, it seems like you thought about the relative volume, the placement, the texture of it, all this stuff. I remember coming
And by
away.
the way, there's a great live version of this on YouTube if you look up, because we have the DVD version up on YouTube. So
I was about to say that came off pretty well. You talking about the Mexicali show?
yeah, it couldn't be better.
Yeah, it did come off well. Jen and I are locked in, and we're both laying back and not pushing. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing you bring up, Dale, is that, you know, there's a bunch of different approaches to one's instrument, and one could be hardcore technical proficiency, whether it's speed or just licks or, you know, that stuff. But then, you know, there is another approach to what you said, like placement of notes, the velocity, as it were, or just attention to, you know, textures and all these things. And for whatever reason, I do tend to gravitate towards that sensitivity to those minute details that no one in a million years in a club through a PA is ever going to hear. But like, I don't know. And I kind of just didn't worry about all that whole other proficiency stuff, you know.
Well, I remember there was a point.
Good part.
There was a point where you and I would try to be, you know, like tighter, and we're both working on our game as being in tight, and I feel like, you know, it was almost, I feel like you were realizing, I think drummers constantly are neurotic about their placement of everything. And you were coming to this whole thing of, I got to really look at my feel. And it was almost like I felt like you passed me up in that stuff. Partly because I'm always on a different drum set. So like it went from both of us having our issues to, you were always so spot on, and I would be aware of my stuff, but then you became this really reliable source of phrasing, I guess is the right way to put it. And now sometimes I can feel myself intending a certain thing, but I'm playing on some weird drum set, and I'm like, but I'll always hear you phrasing it just right. I'm like, that's to me, I'm always impressed by it, because I'm like, I feel like I'm sliding all over the place playing on some weird set, but it's not throwing you off. So anyway, yeah, I really became aware of that.
Maybe, except for on this song. Above Below, I'm always like, that thing always messes me up. So that's funny. It's ironic.
Tommy says he's watching the Mexicali show as soon as we log off. And I was going to say, Gary has a question. He said, which came first when writing that song, bass riff or guitar riff, or did it just evolve from a jam? So that song's pretty composed, but the original demo of Above Below is the arrangement of Above Below, but with none of the interesting parts. So it's got that bass groove was originally sounding much more like a Santana song. It had more of like this kind of like the drums were more like.
Yeah, I think I started to do like a mambo or something on it, like an actual Latin groove.
And I wanted it to be more of like this crazy like New York fusion thing,
right?
You know, and but originally it was a very straight beat, and it was kind of boring, you know. It sounded a lot more like almost kind of the rhythm section of the verses sounded more Santana like, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like
and we specifically tried to steer away from that, because I was like, no, we ain't having that.
Well, it was a good call, because when the rhythm section all sounded like we were doing something traditional and polite, then it just put all this focus on, okay, what are you going to do on guitar over this, as opposed to like a couple things sliding around, and you're not,
instead of me taking all the weight off me and just saying, Dale, play a solo the whole song.
yeah, right. And then you can go, you're not carrying the intensity, but you get to carry the solo. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I get to play a few little jazzy lines and stuff, but it's slamming,
It's a good example of something that I didn't hear at first, that I always know, like when you guys both have a thought about something, I'm like, I don't hear it, but I'm never really saying I disagree. I'm going, I don't hear it. I'm sure if both of you think it's going to be cool, I just got to find it.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. I was, the thing is, I just didn't have the chops to do some of the kind of stuff that I would hear in my head in those verses. I've got a little bit of that, but it's more on the, like to play something fusiony like that versus play something maybe like Steve Morse would play. It's a different kind of, like a swing, it's like that kind of like that kind of stuff. And I'm not strong at that kind of stuff. So it was a challenge to try and do something along those lines, but also taking a lot of weight off of my pressure by making the rhythm section really slamming. So
this song for me, just a quick comment, is a good example of, you imagine you can model after your influence, but it'll come out sounding like you. To me, I was really thinking of like Dennis Chambers in the progressive intro. I don't think I sound like Dennis Chambers playing it, but that's who I heard doing that. It was almost like him with the Greg Howe type of thing.
Yeah, right.
But then afterwards, I didn't feel like it sounded like a cheap Dennis Chambers impression. It sounded like something different. Anyway.
All right. Moving on.
I think that, the chorus of this song too is really spectacular in the contrast from the rest of the song,
Yeah.
And
that's
I know you talk about that a lot in your clinics, Travis, about yeah,
it's more of a so the chorus guitar wise is the super, super simple. I kind of forgot about that actually, but that little cascading thing, that's totally a Jeff Beck influenced thing. So you guys all of a sudden are holding it down with like writing eighth notes, and I'm doing this kind of thing that's in a different time signature.
Really a tricky part too. That I mean, it's so silly, but Dale and I have struggled a little bit with that, to be tight on that part.
Yeah, I always feel like it should be so simple, and I just don't. There's something about it that's elusive. Like it's almost like
it could be the trickling Travis part that somehow triggers something,
Right.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing.
Interesting thing about that.
Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
I was just gonna say real quick, the fact that you're muting those bass notes with your finger, almost like kind of like a Sting Policey thing, where it's like doot 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 doot, but there's a definite division between the notes. That, as simple as it sounds, is something that a lot of guys miss, and that was one of the things that I literally saw LaRue grab onto, because we had never played it before, and when we started playing it, he did like the first couple notes and then realized, oh, that's wrong. Let me change. Like that should sound more like staccato and soft, And it's an important part, rather than just sitting there writing on a da 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 da. Right. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's. I just want to bring a couple of the other song title options, because one of them's really funny.
The trickling Travis part. That's what Tommy just said.
Yeah, that was one. I don't know where this stuff. First of all, there one of the working titles was a Howe Beck song. So, Three Blind Cats and Chocolate Cake.
Huh.
Chocolate Cake.
Whose
idea was that?
Chocolate Cake was before.
Huh.
And then This and That is another one. And then there's another one I can't quite read. So anyways, I just thought Three Blind Cats and Chocolate Cake was kind of odd. Okay, that's all.
Three Blind Cats, of course, taken from a Bond movie.
Right.
Yep. Dr. No. Three blind mice. There she go. Three blind mice. Don't you know?
So what part of the song, though? Oh, probably just the Santana-y thing, because you know how it's like do.
Because it started out with a calypso vibe.
Right. Yeah.
before we changed all that, right?
Yeah,
That's probably
right.
why originally those grooves was like a calypso vibe.
Yeah.
3 blind guys. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, next.
Moving on.
Yep, last song.
Nightfall. Perfect James Bond ending.
Yeah. That was the foreshadowing
Yeah.
comment.
You guys didn't see my my Bond silhouettes with the gun.
Oh,
I
no,
did. I heard you laughing, and so I saw it.
So yeah, you need like blue women swimming in, you know, silhouette water and bubbles and whatnot. So that's definitely a derivative of the aspect of our songs that are Jeff Beck ballad inspired, you know, like a Burn Season or something like that. I play that song with completely with the meat of my thumb the whole time. Never use it on that song. Interesting thing about that song is there's absolutely no guitar lead in that song or no guitar solo.
Solo,
Like,
right.
no
Good.
solo break in that song. It's 100% melody, chorus, bridge, melody. That's it.
Yep.
Just nothing but vibe.
Actually, verse, chorus, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus.
And that's such a great, I love playing that song. Like when I was doing these little solo gigs down at the Libertine before COVID, you know, that was such a great song to start the night when, so again, to preface this for people that don't know this gig, I was doing these little local gigs on the Embarcadero here overlooking the bay, where I could just go down and jam. And sometimes Jen would come with me and I could play anything I wanted. I did like 3 hours. I would have guys from out of town that would come jam. You know, by the end of the night, you're completely blowing it out. You're doing like Lead Boots and Jeff Beck covers and shredding stuff. But at the beginning of the night, you've got people sitting at cocktail tables eating dinner. And so this is a great start of that night. It always sounds so good in there with that tune and the sun's going down and boats are going by. It's like a cool vibe, right? But yeah, this song is, you know, totally me trying to do another one of those kind of Jeff Beck touchy feely vibes, but also it's a Bond theme. I mean, it is a Bond theme, right?
Yep. That's what we called it, the Bond song sometimes.
So my favorite part of this is where I start accenting threes with the octaves in the middle on the bridge, which you'd have to go listen to this song. That that to me, that's like James Bond climbing into the life raft at the end of You Only Live Twice with the girl, right? And then the plane comes and gets them, you know, it's like
and it hooks on and it yanks them, and in real life it would snap their necks, but in the James Bond movie it doesn't.
Somehow
it's okay.
Onto her like without any kind of a carabiner on her or anything, and he gets ripped off at like 600 miles per hour. You literally see the speed bubbles on the human being as he's going like this, but when they show the close-ups, they're just like,
right.
So
amazing.
Anyway,
I love that song. I think that is just such a beautiful song, and I just I don't know. That's, you know, Travis will. I think this is one of those ones you presented almost in its entirely completed form. You know, there's really nothing to do to it, and you know he'll be working on something and he'll present it, and you're just like, oh, okay, there. You know, maybe we'll change a number or two about this verse, this chorus, whatever. But man, it's just brilliant right out of the gates, and this was one of those for sure. Yeah.
And so
I was like, okay, that one's done. Let's go next.
I think my first venture into really trying to, and it's pretty down and it's pretty under the radar in the mix, but really towards the end, trying to get some authentic orchestral effects where you hear, I tracked, several different orchestra things with like these cascading bends of the orchestra that blend into the next orchestra section, so that you hear those like string sections doing those dives, like,
Yeah,
that's that was a lot of work to try and really get that to sound authentic without having, thousands of dollars to get an orchestra. And that was before I was using any of this sample MIDI stuff with Pro Tools. This was actually performing this on, I think that was the Korg with like a MIDI controller that had a pitch bend on it controlling the Korg. So I have an 88 key piano in here that's a Korg piano that has some really nice lush orchestras on it. But to bend them and things like that, I did a bunch of multi-tracking separately so that it wouldn't sound fake. Because a lot of times when you play keyboard strings, when you bend multiple notes at a time, they sound artificial because they're too perfect, right? And so this is really hidden in the mix. It's so smooth that it already kind of sounds perfect, but it doesn't sound as synthetic as if you listen to some old like 80s, like top 40 song that has strings on it, where you hear these kind of really synthetic sounding synthesizer bends that don't sound good. So I was trying to really make it sound like a production, and again, and also maybe being a little influenced by some of Luke stuff, Steve Lukather's solo record at the time. He was doing some stuff where he had some orchestral things on his record, and he does big productions.
I think too, maybe a little bit of I know you mentioned Jeff Beck, but the Emotion and Commotion CD had a lot of that more string. And I also noticed here we had some congas on the tracks on here somewhere. I don't recall that, but evidently. So,
we decided to do it. Go ahead.
I think that Emotion and Commotion CD was sort of in our heads at that point, maybe.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I don't remember. I know the congas are on there because I play this song still.
Yeah.
But
oh, right. Okay.
When I play it to backing track solo and at little gigs and stuff, but
I think I programmed those into your drum machine.
Into the Alesis.
Yes, I think
that's right.
Yeah, and then there was a little bit of a shaker that we just barely put in the peripheral. This was a really good example of just subtlety making certain things pop. You were about to say?
It says tambourine, hard right, congas, left and right, shaker, hard left, right. I don't know what that means exactly now, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sometimes you think you're doing oh, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm done.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, you try to put these little nuances in there and they just, in the end, they don't do that much. But I remember this really mattering, and I was really proud of that drum groove. Like it's so simple, but it's simple in a way like Vinnie Colaiuta playing with Sting, where it's like, oh yeah, it's just straightforward. And you're like, yeah, it's because it's freaking these super badasses playing, and it was just a real simple part, but I just remember feeling like I wanted to get it really perfect.
Well, when you talk about mix on a song like this, which is totally a production song, and this is a great sounding production, it's really about, you're talking about with some of those shakers and those little percussion instruments in the mix and things, we would go back to the studio to change a half a dB, things like that. Like literally, I remember that shaker, like you're talking about, that took like 3 or 4 moves to get it perfect. Like we'd go off and listen to the mix, come back. I mean, we're talking like splitting hairs as far as like the public out there that would listen to this. You have no idea how many hours go into just making sure that one little like in the mix is like the perfect level, and we like discuss it and we change it again and then decide, nope, change it back. That was too much. And so much stuff,
Yeah.
Looking forward to that next year.
Yeah, we're crazy. I'm not looking forward to that at all. I think you may have to block James Tejada because he's suddenly repeating himself here with Fred and Barney, like that other lady was.
Oh, like it's not right. Like it's bullshit.
I'm just teasing.
Oh,
I'm just teasing.
Oh, okay. If it's actually James repeating himself, that's okay, as long as he's not trying to sell us something or teach us how to win $3,000.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to sell us Fred and Barney. No, James is like, sorry.
All right, so there you go. That's
Shift.
That's Shift, which is so I saw somebody. Tommy mentioned he was going to go watch the DVD. I think next week we're going to talk about DVDs.
Oh, okay.
Because we, the Shift Happens DVD is a big enough production to get back into and tell that story, but also we haven't talked about any of the others. So I think we're going to do a DVD episode next week of all the DVDs and what it took to make those happen within reason of what we're allowed to talk about.
Probably late, but I was going to say we haven't discussed any of the art on this, and I don't know. Should I?
Oh yeah, you want to show some of that real quick, Jen?
No, we kind of went over this many episodes ago. I guess quickly, the original concept was to call the album Above Below, but yeah.
But Jennifer Batten has an album called Above, Below, and Beyond.
Right.
Yeah, and at some point we shifted, and that's how the title Shift came about. So I do have a lot of really cool concepts for the artwork, but yeah, it ended up being, I don't know, it turned out really cool. It kind of all fell together. Some albums, I'd say we're pretty lucky in that regard, where a lot of our records just kind of fall together somehow in the artwork and music and all of that stuff, and it's pretty cool.
Well,
so Shift was one of those.
By lucky, I mean you bailed us out by having a great concept on the spot when your other one tanked right before it was time to go. That I kind of wanted to make sure to make that point. It was like you kind of realized we had to revisit the whole thing, and it was close to time. And yeah, you came up with Shift, you came up with the concept, you came up with everything, and it just worked. But
so you only saw the cover tonight, but in the album artwork for Shift, there's this character. And we'll get into more of that next week because of the DVD, because he's also within all that in the menus. But just a real quick reference on that. The character is it's timely because he's wearing a gas mask.
Right.
But he's also our good friend Mario, who brings us down to Mexico when we play there. That's his that's actually his page. What do you call it on the Facebook? Your picture page. He uses that for his image on Facebook. But Jen and I coined that guy Jobin.
Right.
Jobin. Yeah, his name is Jobin. Everybody thought it was me, but it's really Jobin. And Jobin, of course, taken from the Rush-influenced comedy movie I Love You, Man, where one guy is trying to be cool and the other guy is cool. Well, they're both kind of dorks, but one guy's trying to be cool like the other guy. And so they always have nicknames for each other, It's like, all right, Spike, all right, whatever. And the guy he just calls him Jobin one time. It means nothing.
Yeah.
See you later, Jobin. He's like, Jobin? What the hell does Jobin mean? And so that we called that guy Jobin.
Yep.
And he's one of our favorite artistic icons from the TLB world.
Yep.
So, all right, kids. Well,
good old Jobin.
If we could probably stretch it, we're very close to last week, which was the record, which was 2 hours and 40 minutes. But you guys just
thank you everyone for hanging out. This is ridiculously long. I apologize. My bandmates just won't shut up.
True story.
I blame it on you guys. James says Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. Is that your
yes.
Yeah. So show us a little bit of that real quick, Dale. That's your vinyl.
I have a kick trigger that has Vinyl Loop as the title of it, so it gives you some record pop. So if I were to do a James Brown thing. What's that?
So real quick, before we go, all the Support Travis Larson Band links are in the description of this webcast. Our new swag you can find, it says new above it in the description, and you can get now hoodies and women's shirts and things with the TLB More Circle logo on it, as well as outside the in shirts for this very show right here that have our 3 mugs in the back of the van on the front. So if you want to look at us in the back of a van on your chest, God bless you. Thank you for supporting us. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, and all that stuff. We will see you next week, and we will be talking about DVDs.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.